I was forced to the ground, first on my knees and then flat on my chest.
Ha! That's a big game, man.
I pray you never have a moment like this. What will a city already on edge from being militarized think when they see their United States senator being handcuffed just for trying to ask a question?
Ooh, don't do it. Please don't do it.
I don't give a damn fuck.
In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live, a proud duct tape production for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Speaking of the duct tape, a little bit of a late launch there, but looks like all systems are go. Sorry about the delay. Sitting shotgun tonight is our friend Mark Aaron. He is Canadian, Matt, but we do allow it. Welcome back.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here as always.
Follow him on X at LibertyMAaron, linked in the description. Happy Juneteenth Eve, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Our most cherished American holiday. Do you celebrate something Juneteenth-y up north?
No.
No. I actually don't. Does Canada
Do
have
you
a
celebrate it there?
Well, we're supposed to, I guess. Yeah. The banks are closed. Maybe that's about
really?
it. I actually don't know. Does Canada have a history with slavery, or was that it was a uniquely American sin? But
yeah, was you're bad, we're good.
Was slavery legal in Canada at any point? That was not a thing.
No.
Okay.
No, we had there was like a train that they took to get here, the Freedom Train, and they all came here and beat free.
Ah,
all like 8 of them.
The ones that could survive the winters. Yeah. Anyway. For discussion tonight, the Supreme Court released a decision today upholding Tennessee's ban on gender transition services and procedures for minors. I can't believe you don't have a constitutional right to chop a kid's dick off. It's a little bit more complicated than that. It was at least the legal reasoning, but that's kind of what was at stake. It was decided on lines you'd expect. We'll get into exactly why. Trump is demanding Iran's surrender. Today, Iran said absolutely not. And Iran and Israel keep trading bombs and missiles. And everyone says surprises are coming. Surprises are coming later this week. What will the surprises be? Can't wait to find out.
Wasn't that supposed to be last night?
Well,
the surprise
Iran,
that we'd remember forever?
That was, I guess, it was attributed to Iran state media, but apparently it didn't come from there. It was just like a guy with a Twitter account and an Iranian flag as his avatar.
Because, yeah, that's what I saw his thing. And it was like, from Iran.
Yeah. We're going to get you.
I immediately just knew it was official and never questioned anything.
But the Israeli ambassador to the United States is saying on American media, we got a surprise coming Thursday or Friday. Ooh. Well, it's not a surprise anymore, but I guess we don't know what it is.
The technicalities may blow our minds.
Yeah, maybe. We will, of course, as part of that discussion, we will discuss that viral Tucker-Ted Cruz fight about Iran and Israel. So stand by for that. The FBI declassified information about an alleged Chinese plot to meddle in the 2020 election with fake driver's licenses to vote fraudulently by mail. Was it as free and as fair as the freest, fairest ever, as we were told it was? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Plus some other items. Later in the show, we'll take calls and emails as well if you'd like to call the show. Find the Discord server in the description. There are instructions and help available on the server. And, of course, we'll catch up with your Super Chats as well. Speaking of, hey, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show. You can do that one time or recurring for as little as $1 a month over on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/support. Support for the show not only helps me sustain, but it pays the people who make the show possible. There are perks available for your support as well. You can check out the merch store too. Lots of great designs for t-shirts, mugs, and more. Likewise, merch sales help not only my operation, but they support the designers who made these designs, all of whom are listeners of this show. MattChristiansenMedia.com/shop. Both of those links are right there on the homepage. MattChristiansenMedia.com or mattis.gay if you can't spell my confusing name. We got to say hello to our friendly listener-owned business for the evening as well. That's Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing. These are high-quality, handmade, premium hardwood cutting boards, charcuterie boards, serving trays, and more, all of which are great gift options or the perfect piece to class up your kitchen or anywhere else in your home. Blake at Kineo Mountain made me a cutting board engraved with my channel logo. It looks amazing. It's been a part of our family kitchen for a long time now, has not aged a bit. And in addition to the quality, that's the best part about Kineo Mountain's products. They are fully customizable, not just in materials, but in engravings too. So if you'd like to personalize a gift like that, that can be arranged. Or if you have any other custom hardwood project in mind, no matter how big or how small, Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing can make that a reality for you. Just get in touch at KineoWood.com. All Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products are made in Colorado. From premium domestic hardwood sources, Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing is the absolute highest quality woodworking that will last you forever. Listeners of this show get 10% off all Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing products and services using promo code MATT10 at checkout. That's promo code MATT10 for 10% off at KineoWood.com, KineoWood.com. All the information is at MattChristiansenMedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners, for listeners. And don't forget our friends at Hero Soap Company have my signature scents available in cologne as well. You can try out Timberline or Old West in a nice mess-free solid cologne. Or if you just want bar soap, you want liquid soap, shampoo, conditioner, anything else that Hero Soap Company offers, 10% off using promo code MCListener, HeroSoapCompany.com. Promo code MCListener, 10% off, HeroSoapCompany.com. All right. Back into what really matters here. Not that our promotional messages do not, but, you know, as I pride myself on this production, Mark.
Mm-hmm. You got to keep the ship afloat, Matt.
This show is your names that sound like slurs leader, okay? Especially in sports. We know them all.
Kaniga.
Diego Fago. Luke Nigaman.
And of course, recently, we have followed the rise of Oakland Athletics rookie first baseman Nick Kurtz.
Nick Kurtz.
Now, he is not to be confused with Nick Kerr, the son of Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr. All right. But on Monday night in West Sacramento, where the Athletics now play until they complete their move to Las Vegas over the next few years, Nick Kurtz was up to bat in a big spot. Bottom of the ninth, 1-1 tie game. Do you Canadians understand baseball rules?
Yeah.
All right.
Some
you
of
have
us.
the Blue Jays. That's right.
Yeah.
Nick Kurtz, a chance to win the game, and he delivered. Had to edit the video a little bit to avoid the copyright police, but you get the idea. So Nick Kurtz, at 22 years old, is now the fourth youngest athletics player to hit a walk-off home run. And the replies to that clip on X are great. Half the people are saying, "What is his name again?" And the other half are saying, "Will someone please shut that insufferable woman up?" Because, of course, they have a female play-by-play lady for the Athletics. Now, I don't know if you know this piece of Athletics play-by-play history, but the former Athletics voice of the Athletics, I think, was he radio or TV? I can't remember. He got fired because he said Negro Leagues, and he said it wrong.
How do you say Negro Leagues wrong?
He said it too hurried, and it came out N-word league.
Did he not alliterate Hertz properly?
And so far, this woman has captured. She may be annoying. She may be a diversity hire. I don't know. I appreciate her contribution to the soundboard. There's no talk of firing her yet. She better,
that was
enunciate.
close. No, you need like a half a second in between those.
The mob is leaving her alone for now, but someone out there is coming for her sooner or later.
I heard what you said.
So we'll see if there's justice delivered for the play-by-play lady for the Athletics. But all right, in actual news, Earlier today, the Supreme Court released a 6-3 decision upholding the state of Tennessee's ban on gender transition services and procedures for minors. So, this ban in Tennessee prohibits hormone therapy, puberty blockers, surgeries, physical interventions to change your gender for those under 18.
So all the things that aren't happening.
Yeah, right. Well, they're not happening, and also it's good that they are. That is the paradox that always exists. About half of states have similar bans. So Tennessee's not alone in this. This is just the one that the activists chose to challenge. The law took effect in 2023, and several families in Tennessee challenged the law. There's a doctor involved too, presumably the family's doctor. But challenging the law on constitutional grounds, as in you have a constitutional right, or at least an equal protection right to these services or procedures. I'll get to what they're the technicalities.
Yeah, I want to hear the what's the constitutional basis. They're not going the magical 14th Amendment due process route, as in you maybe
have
it's a privacy thing. Maybe.
Well, the argument
nobody.
I'll explain it a little bit more in a second, but the argument is because these hormones are allowed for other medical circumstances, like if you're I guess maybe this is a hypothetical. I don't know if this happens, but let's say you're a boy who's low T or needs testosterone for some medical reason. I don't know what that would be. But the state of Tennessee allows that. It just doesn't allow the hormones and the puberty blockers for the purpose of changing gender, though those things could theoretically be allowed for other reasons. And so they're making a discrimination claim on a gender basis. That's what they're trying to do.
Interesting. Yeah, I think they used to call that like properly using things. I don't know what the term is. You know
yeah,
I mean?
we discriminate with prescription medication in general. You know.
Yeah, isn't that the rightly prescribing stuff?
We discriminate
like,
against becoming a junkie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the benzos for school kids.
Yes.
Super popular. Yeah.
So under this law, doctors who provide these things, they're not even going to prison. They're not getting locked up. It's fines, it's civil penalties, it's, hey, don't do that. Maybe your medical license becomes at risk. It's not a criminal issue, actually.
Shame.
So, well, you can certainly make the argument, I think, very credibly. But it's interesting that this gets challenged as supposedly draconian when it is purely civil in nature. Nobody is facing a criminal charge or a prison term or anything like that. Anyway, you may recall this case. I know I talked about it previously because it was argued back at the end of 2024, and there was this freak show ACLU lawyer who argued the case for these parents named Chase Strangio.
Nobody has to provide this medication to adolescents. These are not doctors being forced to provide this medication. These are doctors who are wanting to treat their patients in the best way that they know how, based on the best available evidence to us. And these are young people who may have known since they were 2 years old exactly who they are, who suffered for 6-7 years before they had any relief. And what's happening here, it's not the kids who are consenting to this treatment, it's the parents who are consenting to the treatment. And as a parent, I would say, when our children are suffering, we are suffering. And these are parents who love their children, who are listening to the advice of their doctors, of the mainstream medical community, and doing what's right for their kids, and the state of Tennessee has displaced their judgment.
That's disgusting.
Okay. Matt, did you have him in mind with your hypothetical case study of the young man who needs testosterone? I'm assuming that was a biological male.
Yeah, what a very convincing man. I don't see anything unusual, potentially unhealthy about him at all. It seems like a great bro I'd like to get a beer with and potentially, I don't know, work on my car with. Maybe play baseball with, Nick Kurtz style.
He could spot you anytime.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't catch the part as a parent. Okay.
I don't know how that works.
Speaking of Tennessee authorities, someone might make a call there.
Definitely worth checking into.
I don't know. I don't know if Chase lives in Tennessee or not. Who knows? But the argument is very interesting. No one's requiring child abuse. It's only if the parents consent to the child abuse. What's the big deal? Don't you want children to grow up happy and healthy like this person here? But the argument is contradictory because on the one hand, it's based on parental consent. We're not doing this unless the parents think it's a good idea. That argument has problems. But the contradiction is also 2-year-olds know they're transgender anyway. And if they do, they should be given access to these services. Are the parents leading here, or are they? It just all paths lead to.
Yeah, whatever's convenient. It doesn't. It's the kids decide, and the parents have to do what the kids decide, or else they'll kill themselves. And if they don't, then it's up to the parents, and it's the parents who have the legal right. And it's, because really, what they're after is something that's very straightforward and solid, and not wishy-washy at all, and is for the best outcome for everyone involved.
Of course, it's just child welfare. That's real. That's
exactly.
But I would like Chase to answer the question. Let's say that a 2-year-old, which if it's a 2-year-old, this is probably the child's first words, I'm trans. The child's first words, I'm trans. Parents say, no, you're not. Who wins? Should we get that kid to a children's medical center for immediate, I don't know, whatever the treatment would be? Give a 2-year-old hormones or something. I don't know. Paint their nails at least.
Well, isn't their first words like dada? So that would mean they're actually a grown man, and therefore they deserve a driver's license and a mortgage.
In the conflict, the hypothetical conflict between convinced 2-year-old and hesitant or resistant parent, who should win? What is the principle at stake here? I don't know. That argument doesn't really answer it. But the consequence here is that this law in Tennessee and all the others like it around the country, again, they exist in about half of states. Those will all stand. So ban away on the child gender transitions if you want to. The Supreme Court, the Constitution has nothing to say about that. That's a political question for you and your state. And the argument that such things were outside the scope of state police power or regulatory power or state politics in general, that argument that there was some constitutional protection for this federally is completely insane. The answer is very simple. If you don't like the law in Tennessee, you have two options. One is to change the law in Tennessee or leave the state of Tennessee. Nothing in the Constitution says the state of Tennessee must live as these freaks command. That's not how the system works.
Right. But were they going at it from a states' rights angle? Like, this is not something the federal government should be allowed to.
No, their argument was the federal government must tell the state of Tennessee that they have to allow these things based on a bizarre equal protection argument.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
Yeah. So I haven't read the full decision yet. I don't have all the details in it. Maybe I will later this week because I like to understand the crazy arguments, I guess. But the decision was 6-3 along the ideological lines you'd expect. You had the sane or quasi-sane people affirming the law, or at least saying it's Tennessee's decision to make. There's no federal intervention here constitutionally. But Jumanji Brown Jackson and Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor were in dissent. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion, which I actually am a little bit surprised by because John Roberts is anyway. He's John Roberts. The transgender activists and the ACLU, they had argued that this law violates equal protection guaranteed by the 14th Amendment. So if I understand their argument correctly, and again, I haven't read through this decision, so if you're really into the weeds of this, go read it yourself. But their argument was something like, because hormones or other treatments to transition kids are available to treat other medical conditions, this is now gender-based discrimination in the law to say that, well, this group of people can have that product or service, but that group can't based on a gender distinction, which is constitutionally suspect.
They went with gender because I could understand arguing it as age-based, because the whole point of this, as I understand, is to stop it from happening to kids. But there's all kinds of age-based discrimination. That's like half the laws that exist are strictly age-based discrimination, but they're going to go with gender-based discrimination. Do you think that would involve having like a set standard for what the hell a gender is?
One might assume, but yeah. I guess they're saying because little boys could have this, but not little girls, or vice versa. Yeah, but to your point, the distinction in the law really is an age distinction. It's not actually gender. The law applies equally to everybody, with the difference being age of maturity or not.
Exactly, right? Because the law is applying to both or all 9 million genders under the age of 18, right? Yeah. So, yeah. Well, we just had a small victory like that up here too. I don't know why, because Canada's retarded with all this stuff, and there's no distance that's not too far for them. But in Quebec, they just decided that we were going to base prison terms on biological sex, not the other kind of sex.
Is that a Quebec thing only, or is that now?
That's all I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah, that it only happened.
Wow,
here.
when even the French Canadians are the sane ones, you guys are in trouble.
Yeah. No, that's yeah.
But the thing is, okay, so even this bizarre, let's take their argument and say, okay, this is like a gender-based distinction because little boys could get testosterone, but not little girls or something like that. Even if they prove that, it still is not necessarily satisfactory to invalidate the law from a constitutional perspective. When gender is implicated in any sort of law, the courts apply what is called intermediate scrutiny. Okay, so without getting too technical here, if there's no constitutional clause implicated, courts will apply what's called rational basis test. Like, is the government pursuing a rational interest through this law? If yes, rubber stamp, it's fine. If there's a fundamental right at stake, like say your free speech rights or theoretically your gun rights, even though not really, but if there's a specific constitutional right at stake, even that could be restricted. The courts apply what's called strict scrutiny. There's got to be a compelling state interest achieved through narrowly tailored means. It's not impossible, but it's hard to do. Gender exists between, and they apply what's called intermediate scrutiny. And what intermediate scrutiny means is that for a law to be satisfactory to the courts from a constitutional perspective, it's kind of between those two things. It must further an important government interest, which some might say child welfare is awfully important. So point one, fulfilled. But two, it must do so by means that are substantially related to that interest. Well, not intervening in a child's natural development seems substantially related. But to remove it from the transgender context a little bit, we allow certain gender-based distinctions in the law because gender-based distinctions are very real. So there's a reason that certain legal distinctions between men and women are allowed, or certain distinctions between men and women in public spaces are allowed, like bathrooms, locker rooms, that sort of stuff.
Isn't that all of Title IX?
Yes, exactly. There's a reason Title IX is allowed to exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so forgive me because I didn't catch maybe in your preamble, what is the law specifically that they were challenging? No medical intervention whatsoever based on gender.
Well, Tennessee's law is just you're not doing hormones, puberty blockers, or surgeries for kids to change their genders.
Okay, and it is intervention specific and cause specific. So it's like only certain things and about changing gender.
Yeah,
or that is anything, because once you get into this murky stuff, it could be.
Well, yeah.
What about if they dress? What if a kid puts on?
Right. Yeah. The law doesn't say anything about that, as far as I'm aware. It doesn't say no dresses. It's strictly
medical intervention in regards to gender transition.
Yeah. So the problem is, even if we buy their theory on gender-based distinction, well, it seems like it passes intermediate scrutiny anyway, in the same way that lots of laws that make distinctions based on gender pass intermediate scrutiny and are constitutionally valid. This was always a bunk argument. In my opinion, they should have tried, and it wouldn't have worked either, but they should have just gone with the Roe v. Wade substantive due process angle. I have a medical due process right to pump my daughter full of testosterone. And I don't think the majority of justices would have bought that, to the extent they don't think you have a due process right to abortion anymore. But I think it was a better chance than this bizarre gender discrimination, equal protection angle that they took. But to get a little
wasn't that what Roe was overturned based on as well, or was that more technical?
Roe was a little bit different. Although they're the same amendment, the 14th Amendment, they're two different clauses. The equal protection clause says that nobody will be denied equal protection of the law. So the law says no stealing. I can't make a law that says stealing from white people is fine, although many would like it. And maybe it kind of exists.
They can in some places.
Yeah. Or if there was a law that said no stealing, but it was only enforced against a particular race or something like that. Okay, that's the equal protection concept. Okay. There's the due process clause that says nobody will be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, something to that effect. I forget the exact phrasing. But this is a whole this is into the weeds itself, because what does that mean? It has been interpreted over the last century to include a whole host of things, including, yes, abortion, including birth control, including things seemingly unrelated to the legal process. The concept of substantive due process. Due process implies a set of rights that you have that are just inherent to the concept of liberty. When I think any actual reading of the 14th Amendment when it says you have a right not to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process, they're just talking about appropriate process of law in a court of law. There's no magical right that you can just read into it. But what I'm saying, they should have gone that route. This is how the left has created constitutional rights out of thin air over the last century. They've used this doctrine of substantive due process.
Well, isn't that what they're using right now against deportations? They're like, they're not getting due process, where the argument is like, no, the process they're due is deportation.
Right.
Like, sorry.
It's not substantive due process because it is related to matters of court proceeding. You know, it's what they call procedural
process. Is it a boy? Yeah, then go play baseball.
But this is where it gets hilarious, is because that is often referred to as procedural due process. It's like, right, that's what process meant in due process.
Right.
It meant process. You cracked the code.
Synonymous.
So substantive due process as opposed to procedural due process is a nonsensical thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
We're getting deep into the weeds of.
Yeah, we're going. Anyone not bored yet? There, let's go.
I find this stuff fascinating, but of course many do not. They say, please get back to baseball.
I try to keep up, Matt.
Please get back to baseball players with names that sound like slurs. We're much more into that. Okay, to get back to the actual decision, John Roberts wrote that majority opinion, and I haven't read it in full, but this excerpt from SCOTUS blog, I think, summarizes well. Writing for the majority, Chief Justice John Roberts acknowledged that the dispute carries with it the weight of fierce scientific and policy debates about the safety, efficacy, and propriety. I was misreading that. Sorry. Safety, efficacy, and propriety of medical treatments in an evolving field. But the court's only role, he said, is to ensure that the Tennessee law does not violate the Constitution's guarantee of equal protection. Having concluded that it does not, Roberts wrote, we leave questions regarding its policy to the people, their elected representatives, and the democratic process.
Bingo.
The proper constitutional framework, of course, is for the people in their states, in Tennessee and all the others, to make these decisions. It's not for freak tranny activists to abuse the federal court system to try to impose their will on the people in that state. And it's as simple as that. And so I'm glad to see that the court got that one right.
That's nice once in a while. And if you look at it in that framework, really what they were trying to do was impose something nationwide, right? I mean, not theoretically, not only would it have invalidated Tennessee's law, but half the states that have these laws, you guys can't do that. It's free reign for all the child transing doctors. Well, and then imagine the floodgates it would have opened if now nationwide you can't restrict any kind of care. I mean, you're two steps from. Thank God you have us just north of you to find out where bad precedent will lead, and you're 6 months from having, state-assisted dying. So,
well, yeah, and the state-assisted suicide, or just like medically assisted suicide, that has been something that has changed my mind on a lot of things, because I used to think that morally speaking, you own your own body, as you can do whatever you want with your body, and there's really no moral wrong as long as it's what you wanted to do. I mean, my mind has changed completely about that, and where I maybe once would have been supportive of that policy, like people should have the right to end their lives if they wish to. No, I've changed my mind on that to summarize a very simple concept, your life has purpose beyond just whether you want to live it today or not. Even, I know it's not the same when you have a terminal illness or something, but if you accept the premise that your life has purpose beyond you, it becomes hard.
There's
to
good
defend.
Arguments. When I was younger, I was very sympathetic towards that, obviously, because you lack some critical thinking skills and you're subject to the propaganda all children are. But I'd always thought, like, okay, well, if you are suffering from something terminal and you're only going to be in pain, whatever, even then, I think that morally it's not right to take your own life. But the problem with medically assisted dying is there's other people involved. And that's where you go down the slippery slope to hell. So it's like, no, you just have to draw a hard line with, again, if you want to be immoral and take your own life, no one's going to throw you in jail for that. But once you start,
try.
they have some get called Constantine. What was the Keanu Reeves?
Wait, who?
Guy who fought demons? Is it Constantine?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a reference. That's like the population of Iran, man. I have no idea.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
900 million?
Maybe. I don't know.
What does it matter?
We're going to evaluate that question momentarily. But are we going to bomb Iran or not? That is the question of the week. Are we going to honor John McCain's wish or not? Do you remember that moment from the 2008?
Bomb Iran.
That's the one. Here's a trip down memory lane.
When do we send them an airmail message to Tehran? That old Beach Boys song, Bomb Iran? Bomb. Hey, man.
Almost 2 decades later, we're still contemplating it.
Yeah, well, they're a day closer to getting that nuke, so
I guess so. They're always one day away for the last several decades. They're one day away. But of course, Israel started airstriking Iran last week. Iran has been hitting Israel back, and this all started on the premise that you mentioned that Iran is imminently close to having a nuclear weapon, and of course, Iran has not been able to negotiate a deal not to make one with Trump over the course of the last couple months. Yesterday, Trump did a lot of saber rattling. He said on Truth Social that we now have total control over the skies of Iran. And Trump knows where the supreme leader is hiding. And Trump phrasing sometimes.
Oh, okay.
He's an easy target, but he's safe because we are not going to take him out. Kill. Oh, thank you.
Is that how it's written?
Yeah, sorry, I can't zoom in very well in Truth's format for whatever reason.
So.
But he said, we are not going to take him out, parentheses, kill, exclamation point, parentheses.
Oh, that's what he's just clarifying what take him out means
yes.
in case anyone didn't catch on. Yeah.
At least for now, we will not do that.
Mm-hmm.
But he says his patience is wearing thin. And then Trump said, lastly, in all caps, unconditional surrender, a call for Iran to surrender unconditionally.
How does that work? How do you surrender when you were the one who was attacked?
I guess what he means is drop their efforts, their nuclear efforts entirely. Now, from Iran's perspective, they're going to say, we're not even making a nuclear weapon. We just want, we want clean civilian energy.
Don't they have, I was under the impression, I don't know if this is correct or not, but they have like a mid-level nuclear program where they're at the point where they could, if they wanted to, given a certain amount of time, but they let the inspectors in and they're kind of like, we do it to this level and then that's it. And that was okay with everyone except one group of people.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
what
that anybody
changed, and I haven't heard a justification for anything changing.
And I don't know that anybody knows for sure what their current level or capabilities are. I know that you had Tulsi Gabbard back in March testifying something to the effect of the Iranians don't have a nuclear weapon now, and they're not developing one, according to our intel sources, or I forget exactly who she was citing. But yeah, it's Israeli intelligence that's saying tomorrow they have a nuke and it's coming, and so we have to go intervene. And
that thermostat chart is about to blow.
Well, something is, I guess. We're all about to blow up.
You haven't seen Netanyahu's thing where it's the old, looks like a thermostat with the red bubble on top, and it's like all the way there. It was like here in 1999, and now it's here.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Okay, sorry. Bad reference.
Anyway, well, that's the thing. They're all bad references with me.
Netanyahu thermostat chart.
Well, today, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei rejected the surrender demand. He says any military involvement from the Americans would cause irreparable damage to us, the Americans. He added, wise individuals who know Iran, its people, and its history never speak to this nation with the language of threats because the Iranian nation is not one to surrender. And really, the consideration right now is mostly related to this Iranian underground nuclear site. And Israel, of course, has hit many nuclear and military and energy sites in Iran so far, but it is believed that Iran keeps its most important nuclear development in a secretive underground site called Fordo, about 100 miles south of Tehran. Now, Fordo is not just underground, it's actually under a mountain or in a mountainous region, making it unreachable with most bombs. But the U.S., of course, has, I guess, what's called bunker buster bombs, so deeply penetrating bombs that could theoretically take out this site. But Israel and the IDF do not have those bombs. These bombs also require apparently specialized aircraft to deliver them because they're so big, so we can't just give them the bombs and have them drop the bombs or something like that. The U.S. would have to do this bombing, it sounds like. And that's one of the things that Trump is reportedly now considering. The IDF on Tuesday says they have an alternative plan to take out this facility, which would involve repeatedly bombing the same spot with smaller bombs over and over again. Now, I don't know a lot about what capabilities Israel's military has or doesn't have. I do know that they're pretty well equipped. I find it odd that they don't have this equipment, that they don't have these bombs or the aircraft to deliver these bombs. But
yeah, it's a little sus. They're like, we just need the U.S. to do it for us, and then therefore be involved in a war to do it.
It's something about that seems odd.
What if have they tried flying the plane in and then flipping upside down and then going down the side of the mountain really fast?
Ask Tom Cruise; he'll teach you. I saw him do that once.
I think there's a move.
Yeah.
Recently, so I know it can be done.
That's right.
I don't know if it busts bunkers, but.
There's one reference I actually got. Well done.
Yeah, there you go.
It's my fault.
I was shitting bricks while I took that chance.
But that was the newest one, right? That was
it was
I
don't know, last year. Is that what it's called? I don't know. Yeah. The new Top Gun is all I bothered to remember.
The slightly less gay one. That's why it was better.
It was like 10% less gay.
As far as what Trump will choose to do, today Trump said, "I'm not looking for a long-term war," which is always encouraging.
Oh, good.
I would like to say, who the hell is looking for a long-term war? And then I remember he hangs out with people in D.C., so see Lindsey Graham and company, and they actually do exist. That's not a made-up person.
Well, this is this is the annoying thing about this, because as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but every president since like 2001, other than Joe Biden, ran and was elected on not doing this. Like, if you know, like the West Clark 7, Wesley Clark is a general, the NATO general.
I remember him. Yeah, the guy who ran for president.
He did? Okay,
he did it in 2004, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he's spoken about someone showed him a top secret document that when they were going into Iraq, he's like, no, we're going into 7 countries in the next 5 years. And it was, Lebanon, Syria, Somalia, a couple more. And Iran is the last one. And even though every president has run and been elected on not doing that, we've still done it. So it kind of shows you who's actually running the State Department / government.
Wesley Clark,
US, and
he's been doing this the whole time.
Clark. No. He's the guy who spilled the beans on the plan. Yeah, maybe he is.
Someone put a stop to
Supreme Commander.
Yeah,
but what? What is Trump? What's he doing?
Well, I know that that's a rhetorical question. I actually don't know what he's. I have no idea what his plans are here. He's just talking shit like Trump does. I could see this going either direction. I could see it shit talking. I could see it being shit talking just to get Iran in line or try to. I definitely could see the bombs actually dropping at any point in Iran. And so, and Trump was asked about this earlier today. A reporter asked him if the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear sites, and Trump said, "I can't say that." Okay. That's the most ambiguous statement you could possibly make, though. Well, I'm not saying we're not doing it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating because I'd like to have opinions about things, and when you're not given anything of substance, it just, this reminds me of Trump's plan after the very honest and secure election of 2020, which is literally seemed like his thing was like talk, then yada, 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 win. Like, you got to be a little bit more specific about the plan there, Donald, because we want to know whether or not we support it.
Well, it is getting interesting in Congress too, though. And if Donald Trump were to launch some sort of attack on Iran, he would have legal authority to do it under the War Powers Act. He is authorized as president to make any sort of military deployment for up to 120 days before additional congressional oversight. And that's because Congress has largely handed this power off to the president. But recall, of course, constitutionally, Congress holds the power to declare war. They've just deferred that to the president.
Right. So is that just through precedent? Because that's what I'd always thought was that
it's by
only
statute.
Congress could declare a war.
They wrote a law that's like, the president can do whatever he wants, but if he goes on too long, then we get involved.
Okay.
But
like, not like the last couple that were quick and easy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But Congress could theoretically stop Trump before he starts. And as we'll get to with Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, Iran and Israel and just Middle East interventionism generally, it makes very strange alliances and very strange enemies. But on the alliances, we now have Thomas Massie aligned with the Squad. So Kentucky Republican Congressman Thomas Massie announced on Monday he's introducing legislation to restrict U.S. involvement in Iran. He said, quote, "This is not our war, but if it were, Congress must decide such matters according to our Constitution. I'm introducing a bipartisan war powers resolution tomorrow to prohibit our involvement. I invite all members of Congress to co-sponsor this resolution." And signing on to that idea, the members of Congress included are AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, Don Beyer, some other Democrats. There's also movement for Democrat opposition in the Senate, though I think the likelihood of substantial Republican opposition.
Not Rand Paul. Thomas Massie signed on, but not because I would see libertarians and dissident right type figures who should be anti-war.
I don't know if Rand Paul has made a statement or not. I would imagine that he is going to agree with Thomas Massie's assessment here. He would be the one guy in the Senate that I think might buck to rein in Trump's power here. But as I said, it gets weird because even if you had Rand Paul buck and maybe join all Democrats to try to undo Trump's power in some sort of bizarre alliance, it doesn't even work that way because John Fetterman is out, a Democrat Frankenstein senator from Pennsylvania. He's saying, I support preemptive action in Iran. So how would this actually line up? And does this, I assume this takes the 60 votes to clear the filibuster? I don't know how this works procedurally. Bottom line, if you ask me to bet, of course I'm going to bet on Congress doing jack shit. And I'm going to win that bet, even though you're not going to get a big payout because it's all but guaranteed. But it is nice to see at least a little movement in Congress to try to get serious about exercising their own constitutional authority and taking some of that back. But anyway, what happened in front of your screen? Is there a piece of paper or something?
Yeah, no. Sorry.
All right. Well, you get that under control.
My camera. Yeah, I got it.
But
go ahead, Matt.
Well, there's. Oh yeah. Okay. There we go.
Good.
Well, now you're off center. What the heck? This is too much duct tape. See if you can you get yourself back in the middle?
I'm trying. Am I centered there? There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
It looks good to me. All right.
Yeah. Well, you're seeing what the stream is seeing, so.
Okay.
But I mentioned the surprises. Trump is trying to remain strategically mysterious, of course. Israel and Iran are teasing surprises too, or maybe they released claims of Iran doing that. As I mentioned, this, I guess, is not from Tehran or Iranian state media. This is the Tehran Updates account. And I guess it's not actually affiliated with the Iranian government, but there was this video that they put out. Big surprise coming tonight. I believe that was yesterday, so it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed. I was 100% sure that this was legit, straight from the mullah, and shit was going to go down. And
it had pretty good production value, this video.
Oh, I didn't watch the video.
It had just a video of missiles and stuff, so I don't know. They seemed ready to go, I guess. But, okay. You also have the Israeli ambassador, who is, again, touring American media and saying things to the effect of, we have our own big surprise coming Thursday or Friday.
Israel's ambassador to the U.S. suggesting much more may be coming.
We've pulled off a number of surprises. When the dust settles, you're going to see some surprises on Thursday night and Friday.
He has the Epstein files. He's ready to release them. That's
right. Surprise of the century. Surprise.
That would be a surprise. Yeah. And if you keep teasing a surprise, I know they're not saying what the surprise is, but don't you take away from the surprise value if you coach people to expect
it's build up?
All right. Well, the viral moment of this to bomb or not to bomb Iran debate came from Tucker Carlson, who hosted Senator Ted Cruz for a podcast episode this week. I think the full episode's out today, but it was promoted yesterday. And as the preview for this episode, Tucker posts this clip of him asking Ted Cruz, who apparently supports preemptive action and or regime change in Iran, hey, what is the population of Iran? And Ted did not know, and then the exchange got more feisty.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population. At all? No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? How many people live in Iran? 92 million. Okay. Yeah. How could you not know that? I don't sit around memorizing population tables. Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government. Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant? Because if you don't know anything about the country... I didn't say I don't know anything about... Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran? They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran. You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government. You're the one who don't know anything about the country. No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad. You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump? Yes, I do.
When Tucker gets in that mode, wait, he gets that high pitch.
You're the poo-poo face.
All right. I know we both have thoughts. You want to go first, or do you want to go second?
You want to go first? Or do you want to go second? Go.
To me, file this one with Elon Musk's drugged out tweets. What I mean by that is I mostly agree with the general Tucker position of non-interventionism. I hate these tactics. You can't answer my pop quiz? That must be because you're wrong about the entire issue. You can do this in reverse. Hey, Tucker, name Iran's top general. Hey, Tucker, describe the entire history of Iran's nuclear enrichment. Hey, Tucker, recite the entire Iran Wikipedia page from memory. And if you can't, it must be because you know nothing about Iran. So how could you possibly evaluate whether they're a credible threat or not? Therefore, my position on Iran is correct. And
Matt,
to the point...
How could you forget, have you been there?
That's right. I actually have not watched that one. I know the memes, but I've not watched it. I've seen the clip. I haven't watched the whole thing. But anyway.
You haven't been?
Yeah. So to the point on the population figure being irrelevant, if Ted Cruz, let's say in a different scenario, Ted Cruz, right on prompt, 92 million, which actually, Tucker, it's 91 million, but I'll count Tucker's.
Right. Well, apparently it's actually somewhere between 85 and 95 million.
Okay. So we don't
Tucker's
know.
Not even,
Okay, we'll say Tucker's right. But let's say that Ted had responded correctly, like right off the bat, 92 million. Would Tucker have said, wow, that's correct. I suppose I'll now consider your position on interventionism. No, he wouldn't have said that. It's a gotcha setup that avoids the substance of the conversation. What are the pros and cons of intervening in Iran and the moral boundaries of doing that? And the pros and cons and the moral boundaries stay the same, whether the population is 1,000 or 100 million, whatever it is. The population doesn't change the calculation. It's just a dumb power move. I know more than you because why? Is it because Tucker is this like a scholar on Iranian history? No, it's because he prepped for this segment. Like, here's a question in my back pocket. I looked on Wikipedia 30 minutes before this interview, and I happened to have that ready to go.
Yeah, Ted Cruz is a professional. He should have been ready with the why do you ask? What's the relevance to that question, right? You do this for a living. You got to have it in the chamber. And it's tough for me because I like Tucker a lot more than I like Cruz.
On this, I agree. I'm more with him.
This was, like I was telling you before the show, this was like the equivalent of Gary Johnson's Aleppo moment. Like, it was a cheap gotcha thing.
Was
and,
Gary Johnson gotcha'd into that? I can't remember how it developed.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, well, kind of, because if anyone that was watching Vice News, as all astute people were at the time, knew what Aleppo was, and Gary Johnson should have, if he was going to speak on the topic. It was the capital, I think, or like at least it was where the fighting was going on at the time. But yeah, this is the hard thing. Back to your question again, it doesn't, whether or not you know the population doesn't affect the moral calculus. But what is the moral calculus? Like, this is my trouble. Like, I'm a very non-interventionist as well. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to fight Israel's wars, but I'm totally down with toppling Islamic dictatorships. So I'm really torn.
Well, this is the,
like,
in general, like international politics and global affairs are not really my wheelhouse. It's just not what interests me as much.
Right. Yeah. You're the law guy. So this is my thing.
But what? I'm gonna do the both sides bit. I have been very disillusioned by both sides here. That is to say, I am hesitant, resistant to becoming world police, to even dipping our toes in yet another Middle Eastern war. That said, I think some of the resistance to the idea of bombing Iran, which I oppose, to be clear, I don't want to get more involved. But there's a lot of, I think, hyperbolic doomsday talk. Let's say we did it. That is to say, it's World War III, we're all dead, whatever. Let's say we did it. Okay, I think what happens is their stuff gets messed up and Iran like throws a fit and launches some missiles at some people. And maybe there's like some Iranian terror attacks or something, like a small group of people who enact some kind of revenge. But my point is, World War III, Iran is not capable of that level of warfare themselves, almost certainly. Who's coming to Iran's aid in World War III? Is it Russia? They're a little busy. Is it China? China's urging de-escalation. I don't know on what basis China goes running to support Iran. I'm not saying, run over them because they have no long-term defense at all. I don't really buy the World War III fear-mongering about it either. So that's why I've been annoyed.
Just watch this be like the one regime change war that works out super easy and everything's good.
Trump was right. It won't even take a long time.
Of the West Clark 7, like of the 7 countries, this is the one where I'm like, do it. Well, take a shot. Blow some shit up, see what happens.
And I know there's probably people out there who are more passionate on it and say like, oh, what an idiot. He knows nothing about it. You're right. I didn't know the Iranian population was 92 million either.
No,
so take my opinion and throw it in the trash. I just
but there's also the possibility, because I've been following a lot of accounts, like there are ones of women who are against because I mean they do live in a completely oppressive Islamic state, and they throw you in prison for showing your hair and stuff, and there is a large portion of the population there that does want to be liberated, unlike Iraq and Afghanistan and all the other countries we've been adventuring in.
I've heard people make that argument because, of course, to me, as the layman here, it sounds a lot like Iraq did. They'll greet us as liberators.
But it's not Iraq.
I know, right? And that's the argument I've heard on the other side, and I'm thinking, is that a correct observation, or am I, fool me, as George W. Bush infamously said, fool me once, fool me once, you won't fool me again. Okay, so that's how I feel about that.
Once, let's go do some coke.
Yeah, I got fooled once back when I was 14 or something, 13. I can't remember how old I was when we. No, I was a little older, like 15. When we
weapons of mass destruction. Is that what you're referring to?
I don't want to get duped by that again. But I want to be fair to Tucker before I finish up my discussion of this too. Again, I mostly agree with his position. I understand his general view and appreciate it. If the U.S. Does decide to get directly involved, we start dropping bombs or whatever, I think there are serious entanglements that could be very costly. And that's why I'm not dismissing his position. I just don't like the tactics. And I also want to clarify, I have not listened to the full episode, so I don't want to dump on, I don't want to give the impression that I'm dumping on the entire thing. That's just what Tucker chose to feature, which I would kind of question the decision to feature that. But for all I know, they get into a deep discussion addressing everything that I think is important, as I mentioned, the pros and cons, the moral boundaries, all that stuff. Go listen to it. I'm not condemning the entire conversation or something. I'm reacting purely to that one 90-second clip that was released.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think they both could be and should be rather decent representatives of the two sides that I'm kind of blasé about either. I'm like, okay, kind of okay with whatever way it goes, you know.
You've been disillusioned into joining John McCain, bomb Iran.
It's like, bomb them if you want.
Listen, if someone has to be bombed, and God knows they have to, this is America.
we gotta be bombing somebody. Bomb the Muzzies. Yeah.
We have a long tradition of that. There were a lot of good memes.
Yeah.
I forgot to. I love.
Well, that's the best meme about it is like, I don't give a shit about wars between people who don't eat bacon. I'm sorry.
If Tucker did pull a gun, it would have been a lot funnier. Quick. It would have been great. I liked this one about where pee is stored. Oh, you can't see it. The last line is, it doesn't matter.
Ah, damn it.
Where's pee stored? Tucker, I don't sit around memorizing the human anatomy. And Tucker says, well, how can you claim to have balls if you don't know pee is stored in them? And I don't know. This one is people are calling this a boomer meme. It might be. Maybe I'm just too old. I thought it was all right, you know, asking Luke Skywalker about the population of the Death Star. All right, whatever. I get it. That's still, it's saying that the problem with this meme is it's saying that bombing Iran is the same thing as taking out the Death Star. But
yeah, I'm just sick of Star Wars memes. We're like, don't you know the Empire's actually the good guys and the Jedis are crazy?
They might be.
I've
never been more open to that. All right. I know I'm up against the top of the hour here, but I just got a couple more items I want to get to, and then we'll get into your calls. So if you're a caller, stand by. I'll be right with you, and thanks for your patience. But I got to talk about this because this seems, we can't see the evidence ourselves yet. There are some reports out. At least I'm not aware of. Like, can we see these Chinese driver's licenses? Is that out there? I haven't had enough time to look. But I think this is kind of a big deal. Up until recently, of course, YouTube mandated that everyone declare the 2020 election the freest, fairest election in the history of our country, or that ever will be held in the future of our country. Now, years later, you're allowed to say it's fake and gay. So, of course, praise be upon our supreme YouTube leader, Raja Mohan.
Isn't that Kash Patel?
That's Kash. So there's just a lot of Indians. Okay, there's a lot of Indians.
They all sound the same.
Yeah, you're right though. That's not Raja Mohan. Although it might be. Who can really tell? You put them in a lineup. They're all Aladdin to me. What can I say? I always wanted Trump to call Vivek Aladdin. It would have been the best. Anyway, isn't Aladdin like Arab though?
Did Vivek ever get Aladdin's Arab?
Yeah, but that's whatever.
Arabian Nights.
Yeah.
But they're
it could be
brown
Indian
too.
Nights.
So again, they all look the same.
Mumbai Nights. I don't know. Doesn't work.
Bombay.
Is it Bombay now or is it Mumbai? I can't remember.
Is Mumbai I think Bombay turned into Mumbai because reasons. I thought Bombay
I know about as much.
Fantastic name. Bombay actually sounds like a place I would want to visit.
Here's an actually impossible question. What is the population of India? Okay, nobody knows. Nobody's capable of knowing. All right?
50 trillion. Are we counting people or?
Yeah, you have to be agnostic on the Indian population question. It's beyond human comprehension.
Yeah, no, there is no number.
Yeah.
Google's?
Back to the point. Whenever we consider the case that maybe there were some 2020 election shenanigans, I think most of us, at least if I'm representative, we think domestically. Like we think Democrat politicians and activists changing the rules to help Joe Biden. And there was plenty of that. We changed a lot of rules. There was a lot of ballot harvesting. There were ballot drop boxes, a lot of nonsense. But I haven't heard as much about the foreign meddling, or maybe I'm just so jaded by all the Russian collusion talk that anytime someone alleges that there was foreign meddling in our elections, I'm like, saying, okay, whatever. I've heard that.
You could argue that all of COVID was foreign meddling, but that's a bit,
But I think this plays into that theory significantly. The FBI released an intelligence report on Monday that alleges China mass-produced fraudulent American driver's licenses for fake mail-in ballot applications during the 2020 election. The reports from August 2020 were not fully investigated, nor were they corroborated. But at the time, the August 2020 report was
ever.
As in until, I guess, maybe we'll look into it now. But according to these reports, the plot from China was specifically designed to benefit Biden. And
shocking.
U.S. officials were aware in August 2020, before the November 2020 election, that this was at least alleged to be going on, and I guess didn't take it seriously or investigate it, or maybe liked it, if you want to be very cynical. But then FBI Director Christopher Wray said there were no known plots of foreign adversaries to interfere in the 2020 elections, while it was known to the federal government that this was going on. According to John Solomon at Just the News, U.S. Customs and Border Protection intercepted nearly 20,000 fake driver's licenses around the time that intelligence came in 2020. So, you know how...
But is that all you need to get a mail-in ballot is a driver's license?
I don't know. I mean, it varied by state.
Like how? Because I know the whole system was just loose as hell, and that was my opinion from the get-go. Was like, oh, just open it up. Because even if all of the ballots belong to real people, you just need mail carriers to. Like I saw that they even had serial numbers on the back of where you'd mail it back, and at the end it had either Republican or like an R or a D, so that people carrying the mail could just toss the ones they didn't like. And that they would just send a bunch to random people's houses who could fill them out for them. But like, there's no way to verify who's getting what, who's filling it out, who's sending it back.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point. Enough,
yeah. Right. So,
and yeah, I as far as I'm aware, we can't see these licenses. Again, they supposedly collected 20,000 of them. You know how when you watch a Chinese dub or you see like Chinese translated English, it's always broken and funny. I want to see what these licenses said. If
this is like, I don't know if you ever shop on like Alibaba or AliExpress and they have like product descriptions. It's
how convincing were these licenses? That's what certainly convincing enough for the county clerk in, whatever, let's say Fulton County, where they have to worry about pipes breaking or something. They got more.
Well, so was this all like in one specific place? Did all of China collude to rig? Because 20,000 is not enough to do anything on the national level. So,
well, that's the thing. It could be. I think it was something like 50, 60, 70,000 votes for Joe Biden were the deciding factor in the places they needed to be, even if his popular vote win.
Well, I guess that was Trump in 2016 too, right? It was very close in a couple places.
If you wanted to rig, you actually only need to rig a few like tens of thousands in very specific locations is how you would do it.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe that happened here, but a big if true, obviously. And the reason I buy this is what you mentioned. It fits neatly into the overall COVID scam. If you believe China, in cooperation with God knows who, intentionally released COVID for, among maybe many purposes that benefit China, meddling in the U.S. election to suit their interests, then this piece of that plot fits right in. You release the virus, you create the circumstances for everybody to stay home and vote remotely and do everything from afar and not in person, and then you meddle with that remote voting so you can scam that with either fake people or otherwise ineligible voters who have been mailed ballots based on some sort of driver's license fraud or something.
I don't know what's not going to get us kicked off YouTube anymore.
I think you can say whatever you want.
I could take it a level further and just say you're the Democrats and you're the globalist WEF cabal, worldwide cabal, and just say there's this thing that we have to lock down for. And
the virus was never even real.
Everywhere.
Is that
who knows?
The virus itself was fake?
Could be. I think the odds are 50-50.
I'm open to that.
I mean, there's
theory.
the cold, the flu just disappeared for 2 years, and death numbers stayed the same as always. So there's a lot of things that kind of lean me towards it's quite possible. The whole thing was just a election fraud. But as my man Curtis Yarvin said, this is politics, and they cheated fair and square.
I guess they did, but I hope Cash and Company chase this one down a little bit, because I think even though I guess we're beyond the COVID scam, are we really? I will forever. It's certainly the greatest fraud perpetrated in my lifetime. And if we can know how, this was not an accident. Whatever happened, it wasn't like, oh, whoopsie, I spilled the bat juice at the lab. That's not what happened.
We accidentally coordinated something worldwide, regardless of what level of crazy it was. It was definitely an attack.
That is the only premise I'm unwilling to accept, that this was just bat soup happenstance. That's not what happened. Someone did this intentionally. Who, how, why? I hope I get to learn before the day that I die. But I'm sure, one day when I'm a very old man, I'll be sitting on You're sitting in my retirement home.
Trump will release the files,
exactly,
I'm sure, and it'll all be in there.
Epstein files in one hand, and the COVID report that answers all your questions.
And JFK, don't forget.
But oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, we went through the JFK ones, remember? Yeah. There's nothing in there really.
There's a trend.
Yeah. Well, did you see the antics of? Well, let me ask you this: do you know who this man is? Now, you're Canadian, so.
I only heard the audio, and I thought it was Cory Booker.
Basically, he's Mexican Cory Booker.
Is this the guy who he has been given the floor?
I don't.
No. That you play the clip and you'll get the joke.
Oh.
If this is the clip, I think it is, which I hope it is.
I don't think it is. I don't think that's part, unless I missed it. It might be part of the same event. But anyway, okay. You got mostly anonymous California Senator Alex Padilla last week. And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is hosting a press conference in LA to discuss the crackdown going on illegal immigrants. Alex Padilla walks in toward her mic, just shouting questions during her presentation. And since he wouldn't shut the hell up, security removed him from the room. He was handcuffed momentarily, but he wasn't arrested. He wasn't charged with a crime, but he's still trying to manufacture this victimhood and fame out of the stunt and convince you that, of course, you're living under a totalitarian state because nobody can ask a question to a federal government representative.
What are we supposed to do if you're not allowed to rush the stage, Matt?
I don't know. But Alex Padilla is not done. On Tuesday, he gave an emotional speech on the Senate floor, choking back tears, as the USA Today reporting describes it. These were his first remarks back in the Senate since that fateful day last week, and he's still doing the same bit. Oh, what will people think when they see their senator detained? But he added some new details to his own supposed fear that he experienced during this incident.
I was forced to the ground, first on my knees and then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway, repeatedly asking, why am I being detained? Not once did they tell me why. I pray you never have a moment like this. But I will tell you, in that moment, a lot of questions came to my mind. First of all, where are they taking me? Because I know I'm not just being escorted out of the building. Am I being arrested here? And what will a city already on edge from being militarized think when they see their United States senator being handcuffed just for trying to ask a question?
That's exactly what happened.
What will they think? They'll think, who the hell is that guy? I've never seen him in my entire life. Which is the point. Alex Padilla is doing this for personal grandstanding, maybe to make a name for himself. This is advertising. This is not injustice. You mentioned Cory Booker. Maybe there's an angle here because Cory Booker's entire appeal is I cry. I'm a very sensitive man. And Cory Booker, of course, ran for president in 2020. And on that debate stage, remember when he tried to speak Spanish? Alex Padilla can do that. I'm crying Cory Booker, but I can speak Spanish.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe that's what he's doing.
And, you know, he's even this because this is when you don't have a platform or policy other than let us do whatever the fuck we want. Then what you have is grandstanding and viral social media moments, and he won the day.
I had tears of rage. Remember that, Cory Booker?
Where was I going? Where were they going to take me?
Well, that's the thing.
Where did they take him?
They didn't. Nowhere? They took him out of the room. They didn't even take him out of the building. So this whole description of, I was just in my head wondering, where are they taking me? You weren't in a van with a bag over your head or something.
Yeah,
they took you outside of the room.
I lived through a thing for like 2 years where I couldn't go in stores or to restaurants. And if I did, the police came.
Yeah.
And took me out.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if police cracked down on you in this way?
What would happen if we lived in some kind of authoritarian, militarized society, Matt? It would just...
He didn't even finish his own sentence, or his own story, rather, because he said, I was wondering, am I being arrested? Well, how long did the wondering continue? Because the story ends
until
with
I
you
wasn't arrested.
Not being arrested. Are you going to omit that part?
Okay. Yes, clearly. Yes, I think that was the whole point, is omitting all the important details.
Anyway. All right. You ready to take some calls?
Let's do it.
let's hop into the Discord server. And Joseph, you got to hop in. Jump into the live room.
I should be there on some level.
You're not.
I will unmute myself.
Am
I in the wrong room?
Yeah, you got to be in the live room. Hold on.
Oh, the other one? This one?
You're in the Matt Christiansen call server?
I thought so.
You see on the left, there should be live room screen.
Calls. It says I'm there, live room. Oh, join voice.
There you go.
Bingo.
All right. Joseph is up first. Joseph, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
What's on your mind? We are well, thanks.
So I just wanted to give like a PSA about, the big beautiful bill is getting passed.
Yeah.
And, I've been part of this community for a long time, and I think you guys all like enjoying public land for camping, hunting, all that kind of stuff. But there was I don't know if you know about it, but there's a recent addendum to the big beautiful bill where they're going to sell, well, they have around 250 million acres of public land for sale. And so, that means a lot to me because I enjoy public land a lot. I'm a little bit of an outdoorsman. And so, basically it's just like a little call to arms to basically tell you guys to call your senators because, we got the Hush Act and the Short Act, so that's for suppressors and the SBS, SBR stuff.
I saw that made it out of committee. Yeah. So if people aren't aware,
it survived the House too, which surprised me personally.
Yeah, potentially massive expansion to your gun rights. I know, as we talked about last time, expanding your rights is the wrong way to frame it, but expansion of the recognition of your rights. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Expansion to the restriction of your rights.
Removal
it's like
of
how they measure inflation. You're not losing them as fast anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like for machine guns to be on there too, but baby steps.
I don't want to.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Matt. I was going to say I don't want to sound insensitive because I'm very much the same way. I like that there are protected lands and stuff. But 250 million acres. Do you know what kind of a percentage that is of what the federal government owns? Because I believe they have.
Yes, currently it's 0.7%.
Okay.
So the sale is 0.7% of their total holdings. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Of public land. Sorry, so this is specifically the west side of the United States.
Yeah.
Being sold. And it's about anyway. So I know it's a little bit, but
it still matters.
I'd have to look into it. And I share your point on appreciating public land and outdoor activities and all that. That said, I think there are also problems with federal administration of land, of which there's a lot. What state are you in, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I'm in California, which is one of the higher states for public land.
Western states in general, the federal government owns a huge portion of. And I guess it would be my preference that a lot of these lands be turned over to the state of Montana so that we can manage them. I think that'd be the rightful way. Now, I'd have to see how this is going to play out. Your fear, or what I would interpret your worry to be, would be selling off these lands to private bidders who are then going to close your access to the land. Would be the worry. Yeah.
Yes, that's particularly.
Yeah.
They're being sold also for habitation purposes, whatever that means.
Yeah, it's good. Well, it's going to be developers.
Yeah.
Developers or frackers or some type of. Dirty capitalist.
There's a lot of interest to manage there. Obviously, a state like Montana, everybody loves public lands here too, and it's a big part of our economy. People come here to hunt. People come here to go skiing. People come here to do all sorts of stuff that involves public lands. And I think I don't know what the bill does, so I'll have to look at it. It would just be my preference to turn it over to the states in that way. Just you guys manage this. You determine what the best use of the land for your state is, and if that's keeping it in state public hands, that's great. If you think it could be developed and managed by private development better, go for it. But yeah, I just the feds have too much property around here.
Sorry, caller, but you were saying you were giving us a call to action there for the listeners.
Yeah, sorry, it's a complicated issue.
Just a PSA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Call your senators and say don't sell. I guess.
Yeah. Please don't sell it.
All right. Well, and the gun stuff's important too. So thanks for raising that. I'm a skeptic of this bill in general, but hey, if I can go, buy a suppressor and not deal with the nonsense, I'll appreciate that little restored piece of being an American.
There you go.
Yeah, because the bill can still be edited, so it's not like we have to throw it all in the trash or accept all of it. So.
Yeah. Oh, really? So how does that work? It passed, but it's not finalized.
It's still in the Senate. They
Yeah.
haven't like they made an addendum, and I'm pretty sure they're still going like to take a vote again to pass it up to the presidential desk, if I have that correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll have to reconcile the House bill and the Senate bill, and the Senate was looking to be done like in the next week or two before the 4th of July, and then they'll have to get everybody on board. But hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the call. And I know for a lot of Western Republicans, that's going to be a sticking point because, the public lands issue also gets a pretty interesting and different split among people.
Yeah, thank you for letting me rant for 3 minutes on your talk show.
Of course. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right. You guys have a good one.
You as well. Okay, next up is Egrin. Egrin, what's on your mind?
So, curious question. You ever had someone that gave you like numbers that in a way they're very fringe numbers just to dismiss your argument?
Yes, like 92 million. Yes, exactly.
You're talking about the whole Tucker Carlson thing?
I figured that's what you were probably referencing, but if not...
No, honestly, so I was talking to a guy that was like very dismissive of the idea of monarchy, or for that matter, just like rules of governments, okay? And trying to be dismissive on the idea of like, oh, we got the perfect system that we got. It's like, but hasn't really delved deep into our system in the first place. So he tries to use like flat earth theory in like it's just as fringe as flat earth theory, while ignoring all the history of monarchy.
So you're pro monarchy, and he's pro constitutional republic, and he's not arguing in good faith. Is that, if I'm understanding?
I would say he's arguing in bad faith, because we technically have a centralized power of the federal government. That is quite true as it stands. And this like lawsuits and judges that we have is a borderline insanity. These like lawsuits that they're trying to do is like it's worthless as far as like of any of good sign of faith. And we do technically have a centralized government that's in DC.
If you take my example of why we keep ending up in these wars that we keep voting against, and I'm using the royal we, there's a very centralized government in America, and it's the oligarchy, and the rest of it's a bit of a shadow game to hide that fact, and this is not new. And so I'm very sympathetic to obviously I'm Canadian, so we do have a useless monarchy that did nothing but betray us, but I do believe that there could be good monarchy out there, and I hope that you're able to have good arguments with your friend, even though we didn't address what you meant by numbers.
Yeah, I appreciate your point that if you are a monarchy skeptic, there are lots of aspects of our current federal government that are very monarchy adjacent, if not outright monarchic. Would that be the word?
Well, so here are the numbers that he was trying to put out. So Sarah Stock had a vote, would you like a king for America? And there was 10,500 votes. 39% basically won on that. Basically people that are over 30 and under 30 won that vote.
Yes, they want a king?
It was plurality, yes? Is that what you're saying? The most popular answer was yes? Or am I misunderstanding?
Wow.
Yeah, of 10,000 votes.
Who are these people?
He was trying
I find
to
that hard to
dismiss
believe,
it,
but...
He was trying to dismiss the the numbers by saying, oh, there's 350 million people in the U.S., and there's like a certain amount of gay homosexuals That's like
true.
7 million. And the
Gay homosexuals, they're even worse.
So,
we all know the
so
type.
he's trying to use very fringe numbers, and I would say I'm trying to see how you can refute it, because I feel like that's bad faith. It's not really arguing the sentiment.
It's hard for me to analyze without hearing the totality of the argument or the substance of it. I would say that in general, appeals to polling are not meaningful to me because majorities or large groups of people are very often wrong about moral concepts. We don't do mob rule for a reason. Polling can be informative for how the public views an issue. You get an idea of what the average person thinks about it, but polling is not informative from a moral perspective or right and wrong or do this or not do that type argument.
But that argument works against democracy as well, right? It's mob rule. Mob rule doesn't.
Well, that's why we have all kinds of
doesn't carry any moral weight with it.
Yeah, and that's why we have all kinds of checks against it that protect moral values that are more important than simple 51% vote
majority. Yeah. Also, my little hint is if you want to win an argument with an American, try the Bernie Sanders route and just say, like, don't you want to be like the Netherlands?
I mean, honestly, at this point, if you're not really delving deep into your history, because we are far from our founding fathers. They had blasphemy laws and Blue Sundays. If you're old enough to understand Blue Sundays, is no one worked on Sunday. Nobody. The only people
it was legally prohibited. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no one was working except for the police and the hospital. That was it.
We had that here until the 80s. There were no stores open. You couldn't do anything, and we still have much more to a much more degree than the U.S.
Was it just cultural?
Well, I mean, like anything, it was culturally enforced. But no stores, as far as I know, stores were not allowed to operate on Sunday.
Well, and
only grocery stores, I believe.
That's where we've got a lot of things twisted about the way the Constitution was supposed to work. I mean, yes, states had their own established religions. They had laws against certain forms of speech. Obviously, those would go against my preferences of the state I would want to live in. But I don't think that erases the right of the people who live in those states to make those determinations for themselves. If you want to live in a state that has an official religion with which you're aligned, or if you think that it's damaging to your community that this perspective or that perspective be uttered publicly, I think it's within your state's police power to do that sort of thing. It's not how I would run my state, but that's the point. How I would run my state is different from how you would run yours, and that's why we designed our country the way that we did. But anyway.
Matt, at some point, I understand you're on the position. It's like, if you don't like your state, move away. We're slowly losing that opportunity to just move to another state.
I know. The federal government has seized way too much power to make that meaningful.
Well, it's not even just a federal government. We are simply running out of options. As much as you want to stay in that position, you can't. You literally cannot. We're at the point of no return.
Oh, I get what you're saying. What I'm describing is the system functioning as designed, like in the ideal. Am I saying that there's never a point to stop and fight? No, of course not. I'm saying if our country was functioning the way the Constitution intended, that is the solution to your problems. I understand your point that there aren't places to retreat anymore because the federal government has seized control of that system and that bargain. I take that point fully. I don't deny what you're saying at all.
But wouldn't you argue that a bunch of the amendments have basically wiped out a majority of the Constitution as it was intended?
Oh, there were lots of mistakes. We need to undo several. Yeah. But anyway, Egret, I appreciate your thoughts. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, take care.
You too.
All right. Last call is going to go to Purpose of the Ages. Purpose of the Ages, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is this your first call? I can't remember if you called in before.
I have never called in before. I've been listening to almost a decade.
Wow.
And first time calling in, so this is officially the goddamn faggiest thing I've ever done.
Well, I wasn't ready for that one.
Congrats.
Let me go find. Wait, hold on. I do
sounder. Come on, Matt.
Well, God, where's my Alex Jones one? I don't know. I don't know if I have that one on deployment. Oh, wait, here it is.
It's the most goddamn faggy thing you ever seen.
Sorry. I got so many, they get lost in the mix. Anyway.
Yeah. But to get the point of what I'm calling in for,
Yeah.
I have a pretty unique insight into government and citizens and how our culture is operating within this, specifically because I work with defense contractors and I see how about 5% of our national budget operates with NASA, NOAA, DOD. I can disclose a couple things, but it's defense contracting waste is not accidental. It's built into our system through our federal acquisition regulations. And those who learn from it, they profit and they move ahead. It's not illegal. In our circles, it's not even frowned upon. Meanwhile, people like that we consider honest middle-class workers, they keep getting squeezed by rules that don't serve them. And they can either become slaves or wage slaves to those like Boeing or Lockheed Martin, or people who start their own business and those business operators operate within those unspoken rules. And like, I was thinking about Senator Palpatine, or whatever his name is, crying on the Senate floor, his emotional displays, they bring up all
Star
of
Wars?
this.
No, he could be Palpatine was way more manly.
Whatever
than
his name
Padilla,
is.
But yeah. Palpatine was
reward-
respectable.
We're talking
in
about the
many
guy
ways.
we just played.
Yeah, the crying dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But his rewards or the weakness of his virtue, they play into the system, just like people who are operating and maybe operating on waste of the government. So people who operate within the system, they could be thinking that they're being responsible because the system benefits them financially, and the way to succeed is to operate within it. Particularly like what I'm talking about with the defense contracting, the deeper you get involved, you have more pressure to get along and you have more incentives financially, and you get pulled deeper into the system to benefit you financially. So there's a principle in play, which is, do you take care of your family through the means that you get through the system, or is your principle to make businesses operate more efficiently? And if the system is set up against businesses to operate efficiently, and the way that people make money is to glean from those wasteful practices, then you have to decide which principle you're going to support.
Well, yeah, and
supporting your family or supporting.
Yes,
business
and
operations.
I know it's not through the same means, but a lot of these principles or questions came up in the COVID context too. Like, to what extent will you comply with a bunch of bullshit to provide for your family? And whether you're a defense contractor or whether you had someone threatening your job because of COVID nonsense, I am totally sympathetic with people who just want to get through it to provide for their family, viewing that as the most important thing because it's right up there as the most important thing. However, it is not the most important thing. That is to say, there is a list of things that you wouldn't do to provide for your family. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not everyone would agree with that. But there are moral wrongs you wouldn't do to provide for your family. Would you become a hitman to provide for your family? Would you become a prostitute to provide for your family? Maybe you want to make an argument that for some reason you live in a bizarre world where the only available career is prostitute or hitman and you've been forced into this, or I don't know. But what I'm saying is there are moral truths higher than even providing for your family that ought to be observed. And easier said than done. I get it. I fully recognize that when I went through COVID, I had the luxury of doing this and calling it a job and not having someone tell me what I have to do to be able to feed my family in that way. Would I have been courageous in a more traditional workplace? I hope so, but I don't know for sure. So I don't say that to like attack people who've kind of put their head down to get through it. I just think it's important to recognize there's moral truth higher than just the check that feeds your kids.
Yeah, but the senator, the Padilla, and whatever his name was, he's operating in a system where when you cry and you virtue signal, you get money. So if he doesn't believe in God or something involved with that, and his system is government and operating within that government and culture, why would he do anything other than what gets his family fed?
Right. Well, this is, I mean, this goes back to the last caller with talking about how the American system has been corrupted. This is the sort of Thomas Sowell libertarian critique, which is that, there's lots of arguments for a government that's functioning properly, but when you have a government that's operating the way the United States and a lot of countries are right now, the entire incentive structure has been flipped, right? So the incentive is not to do the right thing by the people. The incentive is to keep the money train flowing. And most of the American budget right now is one type of theft or another. And so you have to sort of make that moral decision of, do I want to be complicit in this system that all of the incentives are backwards, the entire thing is corrupt, and even if you're getting paid, I think it comes down to your conscience and are you going to do the right thing? This is why.
In a system that is destined to fail or designed to fail, I think you ought to be getting money, storing resources, so that when it fails, you have something to feed your family and then be prepared for the next system. Whether that's this generation, the next generation, or 5 generations, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's hard
to argue. But if you're making your money from what's helping that system collapse, then are you a part of the problem, or are you know what I mean? So you have to decide, what is your moral imperative there? Is it to do the right thing, or do? So it's a great question. I wish I had a good answer for you. Trust me, I remember my kids being like, should I get a job with the government up here? They pay really well. And I was like, well, what kind of life do you want to be stuck in a moral quandary your whole life? Because it's really a hard thing to get out of, especially because it pays well to help the downfall of Western civilization.
It is difficult to work a job that you find some moral opposition to. And without getting into too many details, I have found myself a little bit in that position previously, where my moral assessment of some of the work I was doing changed over time. And it's one thing just to do a job that you don't care about for the sake of getting the check, that you're just kind of apathetic to. It is quite another, to your point, of experiencing moral opposition to the job that you do. And in my case, that didn't last long. I had to get out of there. And that's kind of, I live a much more morally square life now. Look at me. Look at how far I've made it, talking shit on the internet for moral purity. But what I'm trying to say is the point that you're making is absolutely correct, that it's very difficult to live your life with that weighing on your mind all the time. Mm-hmm. But I appreciate it, Purpose of the Ages. Thanks for calling in, man.
Go out to you, and you're not alone. A lot of people are stuck in that position where it's like, okay, what's more important, feeding my kids or being morally righteous? And that's not a call anyone can make for anybody else. So,
all right, God bless you guys.
God bless you. Thanks for calling in, and thanks for supporting. I really appreciate it. Okay. That'll do it on calls. Appreciate all our callers tonight. I have a handful of email questions, Mark, if you're ready for those. Yep. And as a reminder, if you'd like to send an email question for the show, just go to the contact page on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. Look for the MC Live questions box there on the contact page, and you can send a thought or a question in for consideration on the show. But are you a video game guy, Mark?
Oh, not at all.
Okay. So you haven't played Red Dead Redemption at all?
No. I played 007 on the N64.
I played that one.
And Mario Kart.
I also played that one.
And original Sega. Like Sega.
Sega Genesis? That's what I had.
No. There was Sega. Just Sega.
I guess I assumed Genesis was the first one because it's called Genesis.
You'd think. That was the cool thing. What was that? When Genesis came out, would have been... 86, 87, something like that.
Yeah, that was my first game console, but
because I bought the original Sega, and that was around 89 actually.
Well, Marvin Heemeyer's Welding Torch, of course, of Killdozer fame. He says, playing through Red Dead Redemption 2, they seem to put Arthur, the main character, into a lot of leftist and progressive situations to help inside missions. Is this an over-exaggeration, or do you remember being weirded out by this too? So Red Dead Redemption is like a Grand Theft Auto style Western series. Great games.
I'm familiar with it.
Okay, yeah.
Well, not only that, I believe because Montreal is the home to Ubisoft and a bunch of other big game developers that are all raging leftists who do this on purpose. So you're not off track with the question.
Now, I only played through Red Dead Redemption 2 once, but I completed pretty much everything in the single player. And the only politics I recall was there were a lot of storylines about women's suffrage that did seem a little bit out of place to me. But if you want to make the argument, it's historically relevant and it's period appropriate, I guess. I didn't think it was way over the top, but I think at one point you had to cart some suffragettes across town while they have their protest signs or something. I can't remember what the exact premise was, but I remember
couldn't you also abuse them?
Oh, you could definitely you could kill them all if you want. You could just
That's all I heard about the game. I was like, okay, well that's
you could shoot them all in the face if you want. One of the best parts about Red Dead Redemption, the original game, was there was an achievement in the Xbox version called Dastardly. It might have been a PlayStation trophy too. I don't know. I didn't play it on PlayStation, but you had to hog tie a whore from the whorehouse, carry her all the way out to the train tracks, put her on the tracks, and watch the train hit her. And if you didn't watch, you didn't get the achievement. Like I said, I live a life of moral purity now.
That's extreme, yeah.
But yeah, so you could hog tie these suffragettes and put them on the train tracks if you want.
So they're balancing out the side quests.
It's what the game wants you to do versus the freedom that you exercise otherwise. But I would not say that Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game loaded with politics, or certainly I wouldn't say to avoid the game because of politics. Both of the games, Red Dead Redemption and 2, are among my favorite games ever. So if I miss some examples, Mr. He-Meyer's Torch, let me know. I haven't played the game since like 2019, so I might have just forgotten some pieces of it. All right. When you were on, last time you were on, was it the Glenn Greenwald stuff? I know you were on for Glenn Greenwald.
It was 2 Sundays ago or 3 Sundays ago.
Yeah.
So I know we covered Greenwald.
Yeah. Now, there's been a lot of thoughts about Greenwald and talking about what is moral sexual behavior, which I know you and I got into a little bit. And so people have a lot of thoughts about that. And so we have 2 questions to that effect. And Baseball American, I assume in contrast to a Basketball American, I don't know, I assume a Hispanic guy.
Hispanic? Okay.
Baseball American, I had to cut this
tropes lined up.
I had to cut this one down a little bit because you're very wordy. And as a general rule for question askers, I will ask you to be concise, but I'm going to bend the rules a little bit because I still to the extent people still want to keep talking about this, I think the moral principles here are very important, and so I want to continue down this discussion. But Baseball American says, Matt, regarding the issue of sexual degeneracy and immorality, which seems to keep coming up in light of Glenn Greenwald's recent escapades, I think that because sex is generally regarded as a positive and loving act, most people are less willing to consider the fact that there are very clear moral delineations between moral sexual behavior and immoral or even degenerate sexual behavior. And the fact that the lines are drawn primarily upon the execution and intent of the sexual act. But we draw these lines in regards to murder, for example. We generally believe that murder is wrong. However, if you murder someone for morally sufficient reasons, self-defense. Now, I get what he's saying. If you kill someone for morally sufficient reasons, murder by definition is unjustified.
Right.
But killing for unjustified reasons. Yeah. Killing can be justified or unjustified depending on the intent and the conditions, is the point he's making, and I get that. The same act of murder, which is illegal and unjustifiable in other circumstances, is legally and morally square in others. The same is true regarding sex. For most situations, sexual activity is inappropriate and should not be considered moral behavior. It is only in specific circumstances where specific conditions are met where it becomes a moral act. Specifically between husband and wife, within the boundaries of their marriage to each other, i.e. the sexual act shall not denigrate or insult the dignity of either person involved, and with respect to the proper service and function of the male and female bodies, the male to impregnate and the female to become pregnant. This rules out deviant and degenerate sexual behavior and also prohibits them between married persons, which is an important consideration if we as a society are going to freely surrender to the sanctity of marriage between a man and woman. If we're going to surrender that sanctity to degenerates who seek to profane it. Well, first of all,
I agree with that.
I do. It's a lot of text, but I do agree with that.
Yeah, it was well written and articulate. Was there a question?
Well, it's just kind of an observation about why people are maybe resistant to this idea that consent is not the only ingredient to whether a sexual act or behavior is moral or not. And
okay, so yeah, his point is the comparison in how killing is sometimes justified and even encouraged, and other times reprehensible and reprobate. And
conditions and circumstances must be met.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah, I would say that obviously even the immorality I think is different, because I think sexual immorality is with the exception of like rape and violent attacks. When you're just talking about consenting partners, that the immorality is more an immorality to self than an attack on another person per se. But I get what you're saying, that it's an intent thing and it's really alignment with purpose. But
I would argue with that a bit. I mean, I was a young man once and much more loose morally than I am now, and you can do things that are definitely societally acceptable as perfectly fine that do hurt the other person. I mean, the classic trope is like, oh, he's a lady killer or a heartbreaker, but people a womanizer, right? So you can do things that don't even have a negative societal connotation that do hurt people in the long term. And we have a lot of this going on right now, especially with women having hypergamy and pursuing, I don't know if you follow, there's a guy on Twitter named Ho Math.
Yeah, it's a great account.
Okay, right. So, but I saw a breakdown the other day and he was talking about how that because women are allowed to be promiscuous, they're all going after the top, the 9s and 10s of guys.
Yeah.
And so those guys are getting all, from basically the 1s through the 10s. And then the guys that are from the 7s to the 5s are getting nothing. And this is, even though there's nothing in our society, in our culture that would say this is detrimental, it is leading to the destruction of society. And having been one of those guys at one point, I can say, yeah, there are things that don't involve breaching the lines of consent that are still terrible for people and culture and society. So.
The key point that is being raised here is that the difference between moral and immoral sexual behavior is alignment with the purpose of the sexual relationship. And that is, as we discussed on that Sunday, having children and building family. And this is where I get some opposition to this. We'll get that in the next question.
But do you agree? Do you agree that where he went there, that it's even between a husband and wife, if it's not for the purpose? Like, this is where it gets a little too Catholic for me. Like, are you against condoms too? Or
I'm in the pure. What I'm saying is, you can never expect moral perfection out of any single human being. That's impossible. I think the confines of marriage are the appropriate moral restraint in that they recognize that pregnancy and having children is not just the purpose of, but an inherent consequence of the sexual relationship, generally speaking. It's going to happen. And if you're going to engage in the behavior that creates children, you have an obligation to see to those children being raised in the best, most prosperous way that they can. The confines of marriage make sure that the consequence of sex stays appropriately restrained. So let me put it this way. Do I have questions about married couples who experiment?
Well, so this is
I think
question.
It's weird, but do I think it's, let's put it this way. Do I think it's the same immorality as outside the confines of marriage? I do not.
Yeah, that's because that's where it sounds like where he's going with this letter. And I don't really have an opinion one way or another, but I'm definitely not convinced that, okay, so if it's between a husband and a wife, they've reduced the harm to society and to anyone outside themselves. But if they're doing sex things that aren't strictly just for the purpose of getting pregnant, is that a moral bad? I'm not convinced.
I mean, again, it's a question of degree.
I think you can have fun with your wife without just like trying to make babies.
Yeah, it's in what direction are you oriented? I don't think that it's important to dissect every single individual act in that way. I think it's important to ask, in what direction are you oriented? And the confines of marriage make sure that you are oriented properly. That is to say, if and when children result from this relationship, they are set up for success and health and prosperity. Right. That's a question of aim rather than like how tight is your grouping.
Yeah,
you get what
don't
I'm saying?
do stuff that would end in an abortion, even if it's with your only monogamous significant other.
Yeah, correct.
There we go. We solved it, Matt.
So it's to return to that question. What is the purpose and function of the sexual relationship, which is going to be a theme of both of these questions? That's what it does. It creates children. It builds family. It's not about primarily, and I think I ruffle some feathers sometimes too, because people raise the point that you do. Well, am I not supposed to enjoy my time with my wife? Or what do you mean the purpose isn't fun? I mean, primarily, the purpose is not your own jollies and fun and thrills. That is it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. You're supposed to have a good time. but that is not the primary function and effect of the relationship. The defining feature of the sexual organs and the sexual act is it's the relationship that creates children. It builds family. So sexual acts and behavior have to remain oriented toward that purpose. That's kind of the aim concept that I'm talking about here. But the point that we're getting through here, and that I think is that the emailer mentions, and that I think you're raising, obviously there are moral matters here that are more important and of greater significance than just person A and person B consented. There is a natural purpose to the relationship and the act beyond just that. And so on that topic, I have yet another question.
I'll push back a little bit just for a second there, because I think that sex does serve a purpose other than just strictly procreation, which is to develop the relationship between the husband and the wife. And I think that having a healthy relationship with your wife is a very important part of the family, and
of course,
staying together and monogamy and all those things. And so I view more that procreation is a consequence of sex, but not the only purpose.
It's a question of primary and secondary. Of course, there are other.
Yeah, but I think we disagree on those. I would go with primary being the relationship and secondary being the consequence.
I'm about to Tucker Carlson body slam you on that in a second. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
Because maybe Ben is kind
92 million. Gotcha.
Right. Ben might be more toward the perspective that you're offering here. You can tell me if you agree or not, but I'll get through his question and give you my thoughts. But okay, so Ben says, I think your reasoning for deciding what type of sexual relationships are immoral is flawed. To demonstrate that, my wife and I got married later in life. All of her gumballs are shriveled up, and so there's zero chance of children resulting from our copulation. Sorry, I don't mean, I'm just laughing at your phrasing, that's all. Based on what I have heard you say on your show, it would seem that your position is that our sexual relationship is immoral since it is not in any way aligned with procreation. What are your thoughts on that? Well,
that's disgusting.
No, that was the wrong button. No, I meant this one.
Well, I have to disagree with that.
No, actually, I meant this one.
That's disgusting.
No.
Okay.
The exception doesn't disprove the rule. Okay. The purpose of the sexual act is having children. It is building family. The fact that some people are no longer capable of that, or maybe never were, doesn't mean that the purpose changes. If I tell you that shoes are for walking, for example, a person in a wheelchair doesn't disprove that general rule. If I say people have two legs and you show me an amputee, it doesn't disprove the general rule. But I would actually disagree with the characterization here that this relationship as described is not aligned with procreation. Likewise, the defining feature of the male-female relationship is the ability to create children. Male-female is inherently aligned with procreation. That's what the relationship means. And some can't, sure. But that is the feature that in general separates the male-female relationship from all others. Again, the exception does not disprove the rule. And I don't mean to assign a position to you, Ben, because I don't know that you actually believe this or not, but I'm just extrapolating this out a little bit as a thought exercise, just theorizing. And Mark, you can tell me if this addresses your point on primary and secondary purposes. But let's play this out. What is the alternative? So children, building families, not the primary purpose, the primary function. Either because your wife can no longer have children, or whatever reason might be behind that. Does it follow, if that's the case, because your wife can no longer have children because she's older? Does that mean Glenn Greenwald made sex is the same thing as sex between married husband and wife? It does not. It because the married husband and wife are still engaging in the sort of relationship that, in principle, is capable of having children and building that family. That's why the relationship is still the morally correct one. It's aligned with the natural purpose. Even in this particular instance, it's not going to happen. But I do invite Ben to follow up on the flaw. And Mark, maybe we can get into this a little bit. If not,
I would. Let me know when you're done.
Yeah, I swear I only have a little bit more.
Go.
If not having children, and if the purpose is not having children and not building family primarily, then what is the purpose of the sexual relationship? And this is where maybe you can offer some thoughts. Is it just personal fun? Is it thrills? Is it that it feels good? Or is it to love another person? if children are secondary, or they're a consequence of, but not the purpose of, what is primary? What is the more important thing that I'm missing? And I don't say that to Ben or to you, Mark, dismissively or rhetorically. If you think there's something that I'm not identifying as the primary purpose and function, I don't actually understand what that primary purpose and function of sex is. And finally, I'll offer you a little bit of that counter thought exercise. If we don't get that primary function and purpose correct, I think we risk getting pretty morally backward quickly. Say the purpose of sex is just personal fun and thrill. Maybe you think that, or maybe you don't. But it happens to have the secondary effect of having children as a byproduct. Like, it's for this, but it also does that. Wouldn't, this is a hypothetical now, wouldn't gay sex or sodomy actually be more morally square? Because it doesn't risk creating new life, and it properly fulfills the primary purposes of personal pleasure, thrill, loving another person, human bonding, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Is that a straw man? If you reject children
it's a great argument. I'm going to destroy it, but it's good.
Okay. You destroy it.
Okay. So the problem is it's not zero sum and it's not binary. So you kind of would have to chart it out. So you had mentioned before that there's other kinds. The problem is that we live in a society where there's other kinds of relationship than man-women, which is probably for sure there's been like that fringe.
Why is that a problem?
Well, so let me get there. Because I'm in a similar situation to the author here, where we've had 4 kids for many years, and creating more of them is not the primary reason for personal time. And I also think that I don't know how often most people have sex, but it's more than they have babies. And so I've always said, like, as a response to leftist people who are pro gay marriage, pro anything like that, I'm like, I have one simple rule: love whoever you want, do whatever you want, do whatever makes you feel good, as long as you're in a lifelong monogamous relationship with a member of the opposite sex for the purpose of raising well-adjusted children.
Okay, yeah, that's not the direction I thought you were going to go with.
So, no, that's why.
I thought you're just undoing your argument about damaging society. Okay,
do whatever you want as long as it meets those 5 criteria. And so, again, that's the same thing. It applies to a heterosexual long-term relationship, because if you once you have kids, and I think it changes as you in different areas of your life as well. Like, I'm not a 25-year-old with no kids anymore, so the context of sex changes, but the purpose, like now, my primary objective is staying together with my wife and having a healthy relationship and providing a solid place for our kids. And so that still involves sexual intimacy, but procreation is no longer a priority whatsoever.
Yeah, but I why would disagree with that characterization too?
It depends on the time, it depends on the situation, it depends on the purpose, but
it is still
have
in service to your family, though. And it's in service to what? It's in service of an intact family that sees to the future of your children, the continuation of your lineage,
but not making babies. Not
making them, but serving the ones you have already made. And insofar as that is what you're describing as what you're trying to do, I would still say, I mean, that is demonstrating that the creation of children, the building of family, is still the primary purpose that you are serving. It's a different phase of that. It's a later phase of that. But I think that you would, if it's not in service to your children, I think that you would agree that it would be wrong for you to just leave your wife and go have some consensual fun with somebody else. The question is why?
Right. Yeah.
Why?
Well, that's exactly because, like I said, that's my only contention, is that it can have a purpose other than creating children. That there's more to life than just creating children. There's raising them and providing a family and providing that it serves both those functions. And it's not just the creation. Whereas in a gay relationship or in a something that I would see as an immoral, it doesn't matter how you slice it. It's not serving the purpose of raising well-adjusted children, which is done by a heterosexual couple in a lifelong monogamous
Well,
relationship.
it can't serve them insofar as it can't create them. I mean, to serve them, it has to acquire them from another source. And so
which not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think
that's not serving them. So it can't
That
even
is being
serve them by
served with
acquiring them. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like modern day slavery. I don't even know what child trafficking. It's all the things.
No,
all
I don't
the
think
bad
that
things.
I don't think that we're so far off. To me, it's just a question of primary and secondary. And of course, I think that you should have a great relationship with your spouse.
And I'm not even arguing that they're reversed. I'm just saying that I don't think there is a primary or secondary. It's depends.
Maybe you might just say that. Well, if I understand your argument, you're kind of saying they're all in service to. They're all intertwined. Maybe they're not just divided neatly in that. Well, I would agree with that. Like my commitment to my wife is my commitment to my children. You know,
exactly. You
can't just separate them out. If I were to cheat on my wife or she were to cheat on me, the betrayal is to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a betrayal between each other insofar as we've committed our lives to each other, but why? We've committed our lives to each other for the purpose of having a family and building a future through that union. And to betray one another is to betray that future. It's to betray the lives of those kids. And anyway, I feel like Joe Biden.
I think
now.
we agree way more than we disagree.
They're telling me I have to shut up now. I shouldn't go into it
Who's
anymore.
telling you? Oh, are you reading that? See, I don't read the chat, so I don't know what's going on.
No, I
on
just
the other side.
speculate that I'm sure I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they're saying this is the best segment he's ever done. Who knows? Could be anything really.
Half of them are saying that for sure.
I doubt it. All right. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. And like I said, for people that are getting bored of this, as long as the emails keep coming, I'm going to keep addressing. I just think it's very important to get these moral questions right, because all of a sudden, if we think the purposes are different from what they are, and
I think it's also because I don't know the exact demographics of your audience, but I think this is something people don't hear commonly. Is kind of not to say that you're older per se, but I think there are a lot of young men who don't have positive male role models to ask these kind of questions to and get honest answers from. So even if some of the audience doesn't find this the most entertaining thing, I think it's important. And so I'm glad to be here, and I would do this a lot.
I'm going to continue theorizing, philosophizing, going down this route of consensual jollies are the point of the sexual relationship. And again, I'm not assigning you that position, Ben. There's a segment that believes that. I'm going to take it to its logical extent and get people to be arguing that gay sex is the more moral sexual act, that actually
because no abortions,
because it doesn't risk any obligation to a life. Yeah. And it fulfills the purpose of the sexual act, which is your own personal enjoyment and bonding with another person. And so gay sex is the more moral sex to have. We should all be doing it. The chat was right the whole time.
Okay, Matt. Argue. That's the hill you're going to die on.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the hill we're all going to die on. When everyone's having gay sex in the future, there is no future. That's the problem.
That was called the 1980s.
And it almost took us all out. Nuclear war, AIDS. Yeah. All right. Last question from Nate. Have you ever heard of bio-Leninism? It is the theory that what we call woke is communism expanded to encompass the dysgenic. Marx thought the proletariat was just factory workers, so the working class type people, but Lenin expanded it to agricultural peasants. In the same way, the proletariat now consists of literally ugly, sterile, spiteful mutants. They're given power and respect in exchange for loyalty. Thoughts? Now, I haven't thought about it in those terms, but it does make sense. Fundamentally, Marxism is a theory about class conflict. And of course, it was born in economics. The bourgeois oppresses the proletariat. The bosses oppress the worker. We ought to empower this class over that class. And it obviously is applied well beyond the economic setting. We've established oppressor and oppressed classes in all sorts of ways. We've done it with race. We've done it with gender. Now we're doing it in ways beyond the traditional concept of gender with made-up genders. But it's really an exercise to gain power over others if you accept the theory that there are oppressor and oppressive classes. Well, there's sort of a paradoxical power in being an oppressed class because it justifies you in overthrowing the power that is. So if you want that power, you manufacture a victimhood, you become an oppressed class. And I guess the fashionable way to do that now is becoming a fat, ugly dyke or whatever it is. I have no idea. Becoming the least attractive version.
Anything queer. That's what queer is.
Yeah.
Is the destabilized, anti-normal political thing that just happens to want a communist revolution.
And it sucks because it's sort of a chicken or the egg problem. Like, do you become fat and ugly and pathetic because you're Marxist, or are you Marxist because you're fat, ugly, and pathetic?
Which one's the priority here, Matt?
Right. What is primary and what is secondary?
Yeah. I think fat and ugly creates the communists.
But it's such a sad thing for people that buy into this, because if you reject that, if you have a worldview of like, oh, everybody owes me something because I'm oppressed and they're an oppressor, or what, of course you're not going to work hard. Of course you're not going to improve yourself. You might even want to be a worse version of yourself because there's a perverse power in that. If instead you believe, hey, I own my own labor, I'm entitled to the fruits of my labor, guess what? Then you work hard to build something that is yours. And whatever. I guess I get why Marxism is appealing at a very introductory level or a very broad view perspective. But speaking of undoing very important fundamental concepts, once you start undoing that concept, like, hey, I own my own labor, I'm entitled to the fruits of it, they're not community property, people can't take it from me just because they feel like they're owed it. If you get that incorrect, then that's how you go down this pathway of fat, ugly dykes demanding all the power.
Yeah, but I mean, if I can sort of jump in on this one, because I was sort of obsessed with this for a while. I don't know if I'd never heard of it referred to as bio-Leninism, but this is the same thing that Jordan Peterson called, what do you call it? Postmodern neo-Marxism. There's a guy who's become incredibly insufferable lately named James Lindsay, who spent years sort of excavating the history of this neo-Marxism. And this goes back to Herbert Marcuse, who was one of the Frankfurt School, one of the first guys who, once they realized that they came to America after they were evacuated from Europe, and he said the communist revolution here won't work on a class basis because capitalism worked. It gave the middle class a good life. It gave them the goods. So what we have to do is we have to go after and agitate minorities, be it people of color, racial minorities, sexual minorities, anything like that. And this has sort of been the long march through the institutions. It went from him to Kimberly Crenshaw, and then the people who came up with all of the modern, what is the modern left. James Lindsay still has a really good episode on his podcast, New Discourses, that I would recommend to anyone, called Groomer Schools. And it will go through how basically what they've done is reconstruct Mao's, what was it called? The Great Leap Forward, like the People's Revolution in China, where he split everybody into categories, good and bad. And what they do with kids now, especially white kids, they're like, oh, if you're straight, white, you're part of the bad class. But if you're any kind of minority, be that you could just be non-binary, you could be anything other than the straight white Christian normal, and then you're good. You're a good identity, and yeah, you're 100% right with this. It's what they're doing, and they're attacking kids, and they're doing it through schools, and they're doing it through the media, and this is 100% on purpose, and they've been doing it for many years, and you have to understand it to know how to fight it.
Well, speaking of breaking down the family, they've done a lot of that too.
Yeah. Well, this is Mao's thing. He had the four olds, right? It was family, tradition, church, and culture. We have to wipe them all out so we can have the communist revolution. If you look at what they're going after right now, it's all those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Nate. And of course, thanks again to our emailers. As a reminder, you can send an email, message, or question for consideration on the show. Contact page of my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/contact. Look for that MC Live questions box. All right, just a few super chats, and then we're going to call it a night. Let's see. Let's start over on YouTube and Tippy. Let's see what we got. Uncephalized says, sitting in my backyard, smoking a fine pipe tobacco, enjoying a spectacular firefly display. display. Sorry, and hoping Israel isn't dragging us into World War III. Cheers, Matt. Well, thanks for making the show a part of your evening. Sounds great, man. It is. It's getting nice and warm here too, and I need to remind myself to spend a little bit more time reflecting in the nice summer evening weather. You know, I was out taking care of like some yard work and stuff last night. And I'm more of like a winter guy. I like snow. Yeah. I like winter weather. Summer is too hot, but there's something about like a perfect summer night. Yeah, I need to be
able to be outside in the wind and not be cold.
Yes, if there has to be.
Like, Montana has very similar weather to Canada. If you can tell by my face, I love being outside.
Yeah.
And especially at night when in the warm wind, there's nothing like it.
Well, hopefully there are a lot more warm summer backyard pipe tobacco smoking nights
Firefly shows
in the future, and we are not in World War III anytime soon. All right.
Like I said, we're going to put our energy. This is just going to be like regime change, 2 weeks, liberators, no more Islam. There's going to be women in miniskirts.
Once again.
Running up and down the streets in Tehran. Yeah. It'll be phenomenal.
Cody Opperman says, I am pain. Pay for me, please. And like the stream. How do I pay for the pain? I don't know. Well, thank you, Cody. I appreciate it. Long Dong John. Why did the DOJ drop all charges against Brad Lander? I don't know the name. Do you know that name?
Nope.
Brad Lander, New York City. All right, let me pull this up quick. This is like breaking news. It's new news this week. So New York City, this word. How do you pronounce the fourth word?
I believe it's actually just pronounced controller.
Yeah.
Like you got a
controller. Yeah. Anyway, that job is what? Someone who's like a financial manager of the city? I can't remember. New York City controller and mayoral candidate Brad Lander released after arrest by immigration officers outside the court. Okay. So what did he do?
Okay.
He was in federal custody.
Wasn't this the guy who interrupted this is not the guy from before?
No, this is something that happened in New York.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So, but that's the fashionable thing for Democrats to do now is just interrupt things and get arrested. So he was arrested.
I think you just answered it. It's another publicity stunt.
Yeah. He was arrested by officers at immigration court in Manhattan after he tried to escort a migrant whom officers were attempting to arrest. Okay. So this is beyond just like, if what he's accused of doing is true, this is beyond just heckling or...
This is like the judge a month or two ago.
Like assisting an illegal immigrant with potentially evading law enforcement or something like that. He was walking alongside migrants as they exited their court appointments in response to reports that the migrants were being taken into custody following court appearances. Okay, so without reading through this whole thing, why did he get his...
CNN? Wow.
Yeah, this...
Calling them migrants?
Yesterday, apparently, he got charges dropped, according to... Well, this is what Long Dong John is saying, although this story from CNN yesterday just said he was released after arrest. So I assume there were charges. Now they're dropped? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this.
What were the charges?
Detained at immigration court. I mean, if this... I don't see news about his charges being dropped, though. I just see news about the arrest. So... Okay, no, there is a story here. Brad Lander, let me pull this up. Freed after feds dropped charges hours after his dramatic arrest. So he received a hero's welcome after he was released from federal custody. Yeah, I don't... Hochul told the crowd, so the governor told the crowd criminal charges against Lander had been dropped, but were they not federal charges? So that's not like Kathy Hochul or a New York State prosecutor's decision.
Right.
So I guess to Long Dong John's point, why would federal prosecutors in New York drop these charges? And what is Trump going to have to say about that, since I assume this is his jurisdiction? And, Pam Bondi. But Pam Bondi's too busy going through the truckloads of Epstein documents, I assume.
If I have the afternoon off tomorrow, I'll dig into this story and figure it out.
He adds...
Grok.
Long Dong John adds, come on, Trump, get the pimp hand out and get Bondi to make an example of this clown. Yeah, so... That's what would have to happen. I wonder what.
That's what I don't get. Like, I don't know why is Hochul announcing something that should be federal, but I don't know what the charges were. I don't know if they were federal or state or.
If it's impeding immigration enforcement, it's got to be federal. And,
should be.
Yeah.
Right. But why is the governor
And it says right here in the headline, feds drop charges. So yeah, I assume Kathy Hochul's there just to make a show of it too.
Right.
But yeah, she doesn't actually.
Maybe again, without knowing, maybe the charges were like something really minor. All we know is he was walking beside somebody.
I don't know exactly what he did, but it sounds like he potentially interfered or meddled with immigration enforcement somehow. Fiery Waco, if the U.S. instituted morality peace patrols, do you think we could get any Islamic countries to forgive us for what we are about to do? You mean what we're going to do? I guess you're laughing. I guess I don't necessarily get it. What? Explain this more to me.
The Beach Boys wrote a song about it.
Oh. Wait, what?
Bomb, bomb, bomb.
Right, so if we instituted morality police patrols, do you think we could get Islamic countries to forgive us? So if we bomb Iran
and then turn muzzy,
and will they be like, all right, fine?
Yeah, I doubt it. I think they'll be pissed off, and they're not going to like you no matter how Islamic you behave unless you convert. So no and no.
Thank you, Fiery Waco.
Sorry.
Dangerous Spaces, our friendly call screener, has a bunch of chats over on Rumble. Let me see what he has to say. What's up, ma? What's up, ma? Putting my journalism hat on. I have no idea how the fuck those questions by Tucker were relevant. Not knowing arguably irrelevant points and knowing nothing are not the same. It's just an attempted dunk. I mean, it's not to get at any fact that really matters. It's to demonstrate the supposed flex of, I know stuff about this country and you don't, therefore my opinion about what should be done about it is better than yours. That's it.
Yeah, it was bad. I'll devil's advocate for 1 second, even though I'm not super sympathetic, because I've seen comparisons to the Douglas Murray-Dave Smith debate where Douglas Murray basically said, you're not an expert, therefore you don't get to have an opinion, even though his qualifications for what makes an expert were like, have you been there?
Yeah.
And people are saying that this was Tucker doing the same thing as Douglas Murray, which is kind of like, yeah, it was a shitty gotcha question, but at the same time, like, I hold Ted Cruz to a higher standard than Dave Smith because Ted Cruz is a sitting senator who's asking for the right to demand regime change in a like sovereign foreign nation. So he should know some basic facts, just given his position of authority. Whereas I'm not going to hold a comedian on Rogan to the same standard. I'm going to resort to his argument. Ted Cruz is not going to be judged solely on his argument. I'm going to judge him based on the power he wields in the American government. So
you could argue that some baseline knowledge is to be expected. The problem is you can always find some piece of that baseline knowledge that is going to be absent. And as I know you're devil's advocating.
Yeah, but they weren't like the hardest questions ever. Like this wasn't.
I don't know how. Okay, let's put it.
How many people live there?
In World War II, like before D-Day, hey Eisenhower, what's the population of Germany? You think he like nails it? I don't know. Probably not.
Matt, what's the population of Germany?
I have no idea. I'm going to guess 50 million. So let's see if I'm right.
Something. No, it's I think 70.
83 million. It's almost as big as Iran. Yeah,
exactly.
The point that I think we agree on is whether he knows that fact or not, it does not change whether it does not define or change what the right move with respect to Iran is.
It's not an argument.
It's just like a flex. Yeah. So anyway, but I get it.
Molyneux has entered the chat.
I get your point that like, okay, there's not. If you're going to hold some people to a very high standard, politicians are a great place to start. The problem is they don't fulfill even the lowest standard, so you're going to be disappointed. But he also says, also not sure if you remember this from Trump's first term, but there was only one time I saw the media view him presidentially when he bombed Syria. I remember thinking it was so messed up. There were a couple episodes. He did the Syrian airfield bombing. There was the Soleimani airstrike. There were a few Middle Eastern, military.
Yeah, I remember
efforts
CNN.
that
I think it was Anderson Cooper. It's like he just looks so presidential pushing that button. Oh, it's majestic.
That sounds like an Anderson Cooper thing. He just can't resist male energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Dangerous Spaces says, have you thought about bringing back surprise cringe? I saw Eric Swalwell repost a cringe scripted video about ICE arresting people. Made me think of some of those insane political ads. I mean, I don't know. The problem is I have rotating people in the show, of course, so I don't know that it works necessarily with everybody, but also like as a courtesy to people who are getting comfortable with roles in the show, I like you guys to at least know what we're going to talk about rather than like spring some surprise on you. Not that you have to prep a whole bunch, but it's just hard. Like if
I
you're
do zero prep.
Yeah,
I don't
it's not
look into. I look at the thing and I go, okay.
Yeah, I don't
about it.
I just don't. I'm not looking to gotcha you. I'm not looking to ask you what the population of Iran is. So I know that surprise.
Hit me with another one. Hit me with a random one.
This is kind of fun, actually. Okay. It's funny you bring this up because I am playing a little bit more video games with my oldest son, who's going to be 4 in September. He's old enough to play some Xbox with me. And so one of the things we play is a learning game. And this learning game has various logic games, puzzles, and tests of knowledge that are age appropriate. But it goes from ages 3 up to like 11 or 12. And so we go back and forth and trade off like playing the games, and I play the hard ones, okay? But the hard ones are like global capitals. And if you try to identify all the capital cities in the Middle East or Europe without making a mistake, son of a bitch, do I get pissed off. No 12-year-old can do this. So this quizzing of like, what's the population of, what's the capital of, my brain is in that mode right now. So I know all these weird countries that I hadn't even like, I don't know. I didn't even know they were, half these countries I didn't even know existed. But how about the population of the UAE?
It's not huge. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I know it's between 3 and 30 million.
That's such a UAE cheater range.
There's not a lot of countries with less than 30 million. Wait, I'm going to narrow it down, but this is purely speculative.
You are right, by the way. I'll tell you you're right.
I'm going to go with like smack dab in the middle, 15 to 20 million.
Not terrible. 10.5.
It's 5 off on my low estimate.
Yeah. So
it's not bad.
That's pretty good. I think that's acceptable. Better than Ted Cruz, for sure.
I should be a U.S. Senator.
Dangerous Spaces says...
I'm Canadian. He's Canadian. My dad also shot Kennedy. So...
2 new callers tonight. Just want to again encourage new callers. I know even joining Discord can be confusing. He says he's here to help, working on ideas of how to help people struggling with that. Yeah, if you hop in the Discord server, Dangerous Spaces will help you out. I know it's if you're not used to Discord, it's a very strange thing. Even if you are used to Discord, it's not exactly easy. But he will help you out, and I appreciate that. And he says, am I crazy to think that you both cannot want to send troops into a war, but also recognize that military action can be needed? Slapping down a threat may avoid the need for boots on the ground, right? As in bombing Iran may save the need for like a more full-scale war later. You could make that argument, I suppose. I guess my fear is, again, I'm not super afraid of a World War III situation. What I am afraid of is getting unintentionally dragged into a very prolonged conflict. That is to say, you bomb Fordo and there's some sort of Iranian terror cell or one of their proxies that's really pissed off, and they commit a major terrorist attack against the United States in retribution. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now we got to go find them in their caves, and you spend 20 years finding them in their caves. That's the sort of situation.
And then leave $80 billion worth of weapons there when you finally pull out 20 years later.
I worry about that scenario. I also worry about the Iraq scenario where it's like, well, we just got to take out Fordo because they got all their nukes in there. And then we do bomb it. And it turns out that it was like, it was just the Ayatollah's personal man cave where he played Xbox. And all that intel about their nuclear capabilities was a bunch of bullshit.
Well, that's very likely, and I think the major issue, and this is maybe a simplifying or a complicating factor, is that as far as I'm aware, Iran geographically, it would be as stupid as sending the army into Russia in the winter. Like, you can't do a land invasion there. So it's going to be aerial bombing campaigns one way or the other, and us hitting them from the skies and them hitting us through like the 10 million randos who just crossed your border in the last 3 years. So
that's true. I hadn't even thought about that potential angle. Right? Like, are we confident that Iran doesn't have Iranian
50 million
forces in our country just hanging out for the order?
No way to know.
I could definitely see that being a real scenario.
Not just them. There's probably 500,000 Iranians in New York.
Do you remember
who could be radicalized tomorrow?
That, yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
They're not
alone
technically
Canada,
under orders.
I
They're
don't know.
that's how they identify as Iranian.
We'd have to go. We'd got to go straight up FDR.
Do you remember a couple of years ago? I remember doing a video about this, or maybe a year ago. But there were the people in Biden's. They weren't cabinet officials, but they were assistants. I can't remember what their roles were. They were straight up Iranian spies. Like he had agents of the supreme leader in his team.
Nice.
And we just kind of like, well, all right, we got Iran people.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like this is the kind of thing where it's going to be stuff that we didn't even think of or foresee. I mean, to me, I didn't even know that they did spycraft.
Yeah.
I thought that was the Chinese thing, but
and when I say
who knows? We don't know that much.
When I say spy, too, it wasn't just that they were Iranian descent or Iranian nationals or whatever. It's that there was demonstrated communication between through those people of what was going on in the White House, information given to the Iranian government.
Nice. Yeah. So
we used to call it treason. Those were the days. Anyway, thank you.
Now
Dangerous
we call
Spaces.
it swallowing.
Right. Over on Odyssey, sending me, the George Floyd meme. It's Tucker kneeling on. You want to see this one? Should I pull this one up? I don't know that I agree with the characterization, but sometimes it's fun to show. Hold on. Let me pull this one up.
Is it Tucker choking out Cruz?
It's Tucker kneeling on Ted Cruz's neck. Oh, wait. Why?
Again, I have to see the interview because I was not impressed with the clip. I thought it looked worse on Tucker than it did on Cruz.
I don't agree with the premise here, but I will always appreciate kneeling on.
Yeah, any George Floyd meme will make me smile. It doesn't even have to be apropos.
Says, did you see Ted on Tucker's show? I did. This was that 1 minute video. Yeah, that's the clip. Yeah. And then Tucker slapping Ted Cruz like Will Smith did to Chris Rock. And Matt, if we get into World War III, what are the chances conservatives win in 2028? Not great. I don't think that we should make this decision based on a political calculation, like, oh, how is this going to work out for the president or his party come next election? I think you should make this sort of decision based on moral principle and based on the degree of the threat that this country presents.
Yeah, but even there, what's the moral principle when you're dealing with like the Shah, who is only there because the CIA fucked around in the 70s and he's been oppressing his people? Like I'm saying, like this is the one where I'm like, why not?
I would say
not
like
only that, it's the World War III thing. You said it earlier. How do we know it wouldn't be? Who's gonna back them up? Russia, China? Like, where's the world war? Where's the alliance?
Yeah, I just don't see the
Where's
Iranian
the axis
team.
of evil?
When I say like I would apply what moral principles I would abide by, the same moral principles I apply to a personal self-defense case. Like if someone's pointing a gun at me, I shoot him. Question is Iran pointing a gun at us? And to your point, like
we don't know. Do you trust the Israelis? We don't know. We don't know shit.
And is Iran? I guess the question that you're raising is, should Iran be entitled to the same moral principles that apply to other countries, which is its own debate? You're kind of saying they're like their own illegitimate country that who gives a shit? Just do whatever you want to. It doesn't really matter.
Kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Blankets also says, Matt, it's another video of him talking about Russia and Ukraine. Oh, the Ted and Tucker thing.
I missed it. Sorry.
I can play if it's 1 minute. I'll tell you what. Normally, I don't like to do the chat submissions to play on the show because you can get in trouble that way. But if it's just those two talking for a minute, I can give it a little play. Let's see what they had to say. Okay.
An unending string. And I see an unending string of foreign policy disasters that have impoverished and hurt our country.
Unending string.
Unending string. They would include Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, and our inability to stop the Houthis, by the way, in Yemen, which exposes us as weak, and I grieve over that. So these are failures. You helped preside over some of them as a member of the Senate.
What failures, foreign policy failures, have I presided over?
Well, we were unable to beat Russia in the war that you supported against Russia. You've been spending the last 3 years telling us that Vladimir Putin is evil and we're going to beat him with other people's children, and 1 million of those kids are now dead. You've never apologized for that. That was a full failure.
By the way, look, the level of number of falsehoods you lay out just in one statement are rather
You haven't supported
stunning.
the war against Russia?
are rather stunning. So the war against Russia was caused, which I have explained at great detail, by Joe Biden's weakness.
But you supported the war.
If you want to talk, we can talk Russia and Ukraine. I'm happy to talk about it.
Do you think that's been a success?
No, it's been an absolute disaster.
Okay, but you supported it. Shouldn't you apologize?
No, you should apologize. I'm not going to engage in the demanding of apologies. So I'm like,
that's my point. Is all these failures and no one ever says I'm sorry.
Matter, or do you just throw out if you want to talk, we can talk.
Okay, I do. I want to know why that seems like a true disaster for the United States.
I hate you all. Die, die, die.
But that didn't look good for Cruz. Like because literally he just read off the list. Like, here's our foreign entanglements from the past 15 years. They're all disasters, and you supported every single one of them. So why? Other than we need to support the Make Work program that is the American military and defense contractors.
Yeah. Seriously speaking, I have less of a problem with this insofar as the line of questioning was, you supported X, it turned out Y. Your thoughts? The only dispute I have with this is the trying to control the conversation more into like an apology browbeating. You must atone. You must bend the knee. That I don't like that sort of stuff. I do think it's perfectly fair to ask.
Yeah, but it's Ted Cruz.
All right, fine. A little bit of Ted.
He's like the Iran of senators. Like, if anyone, special rules for him.
I like bearded Ted. Bombs. I think he's beautiful, Ted. I'm much warmer to Ted these days than I was in any era prior. But yeah, I think it's totally fair to ask a senator or any member of the government, you supported X and it turned out Y. Explain. That was the heart of the question. That's fine. Stylistic. I wouldn't have done the apology browbeating, but that's not the substance of what Tucker is asking there. So fair enough. But all right, we're all set. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we're out of here?
I think we covered a lot.
All right. Any more discussion on what the purpose of the sexual relationship is? No. All right. Purpose of the Ages has one more chat, actually. Forever wars are also part of my call. Is there a moral dilemma for a Titanic employee quietly stowing a secret life raft because he knew the raft could save his family and community? Warmongers operate in this flawed system. That's an interesting moral dilemma. Like, if you're the Titanic worker that is aware that there are not enough life rafts for the people on the ship in case the ship sinks, and you're like, well, let me put one of those in my own personal locker.
Totally
just in
fine
case.
by me.
To me,
don't ask me. I don't even need to think about it. That's my answer. I'm sticking to it.
Your answer is totally justified.
To save your family before random strangers. Yeah.
I would say that the most proper. Let's put it this way.
He said family in the question, right?
Yes, family and community. Yeah. If the person working on the Titanic was aware of that problem and brought that problem to the appropriate authorities, and they said, don't give a shit, then I'm especially on board.
Yeah.
But if he kept that information to himself and used
you're bringing in externalities that were not in the proposed moral dilemma.
All right.
So he has done everything within his power to avert and correct and warn about the impending disaster. There's nothing else he can do except store the raft or share the raft.
Yeah. Then
family or strangers.
Well, yeah. If I'm doing the trolley problem and I have to protect my family or protect a stranger, any honest person is going to protect their family.
But to me, that's like the immigration question. Like, well, why don't we just let in the entire third world and give them our welfare instead of me saving tax dollars and putting my kids in good school and feeding them? I'm sorry. You couldn't even try to confuse me with a dilemma there. Like, there's no question.
But I do think, obviously, that doesn't come with total license to do whatever you want. Like, I don't see a guy on the street and shoot him in the face and think, well, he plausibly could have presented a threat to my family at some point, so I'm just protecting my family. I know I'm going to an extreme length. But what I'm saying here is there are the lives of those on the ship are certainly important enough that this guy should have done what he could to protect everybody. And if you can show me that he did that, and the decision of who to save was forced on him, it must be X or Y, and he chose Y, being his family, then I get it. Yeah, makes sense.
My answer is assuming all of that was a given.
Yeah, got it. All right, I think we're all set. Good on Rumble, good on Odyssey. I always got to scroll down on Odyssey to double check. Good on YouTube and Tippy. All right, man.
I'll give my shout out. Follow me on Twitter.
That's right.
I like to waste time there and cause shit. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for having me, Matt. It's always awesome to be here, and I look forward to coming back as often as you have me.
Of course. That's Mark Aaron sitting in tonight. Follow him on X Liberty M Aaron at Liberty M Aaron. You can find that linked in the description. Of course, thanks for tuning in tonight in general. Thanks to our live chatters, super chatters, making the live show a success. Hey, if you're listening on demand later, thank you kindly for supporting the show as well. Thanks to producer Tim for his assistance, as always. If you'd like more to listen to, podcast page of my website, anything else show-related, mattchristiansenmedia.com. I'm back on Sunday night. Hope to see you then. Have a great night. Have a great week.